Hello and welcome to Gaming Together, a Cooperative Podcast. I'm your host, Phillip, and I'm here with my co-partner, Nave. Each pod, we play through a cooperative experience and relay to you, the listener, if this game is the creme de la creme of co-op or something better off playing solo. Hey, Nave.
It's the new year, Phillip. You have any New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, we talked about them in our New Year's episode.
My New Year's resolution.
I'm going to beat 100 games this year.
I don't care, Phillip.
What's yours?
My New Year's resolution is getting more guests on the podcast. We have a guest today.
We do?
Yes, it is Ryan Turford from the Xbox Drive and RPG Cave over at Carpool Gaming. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope you guys are having, a wonderful, wonderful beginning of 2023. I mean, I'm excited to be here because honestly, it's been a long time since I've guested on another podcast. I haven't been on another podcast since, besides Carpool Gaming podcast, in a while. So it's cool to actually be able to branch out a little bit and be on a podcast with y'all tonight. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Definitely feels good. Like you have no hands on the steering wheel. You're just letting things happen. I really enjoy going over to other shows as well. And hopefully maybe we can do Xbox Drive or something because we're some Xbox boys, right, Phillip?
Yeah, we also drive cars. Nave drives a car for his job, actually, as a mailman.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all say that like you're trying to be nice to me, but I don't drive. I don't even have a driver's license. So
no.
It is one of those things where Sean's the one that drives on the show, and then I'm the one who, drives the show in quotations from home. We're all about, dad joke catch lines for that show. So very much that's my driving experience is that or playing, driving video games. So I'm definitely not a car person. That's for sure.
Which with your shows, like you have the RPG Cave and Carpool Gaming, Xbox, Carpool, Xbox Drive. That's it. Since you have an Xbox and an RPG podcast, I wanted to ask you what the number one Xbox RPG is. Lost Odyssey or Too Human?
I love that that's a question because no, it's not. It's obviously not Too Human. I mean, it could.
It's not
it could
Too Human?
be. I'm sure there's probably someone out there who thinks that Too Human is the best RPG on Xbox, but it's probably not many people because obviously Lost Odyssey is definitely better. Now, I will say, I'm going to throw this out there. I don't even think that Lost Odyssey is the best RPG on Xbox. I mean, in fact, it's like maybe in the top 10 or top 20 RPGs on Xbox. Although if you're talking about exclusive RPGs, that does, that narrows it for Xbox. A lot more. Yeah. But even if you consider first party RPGs, I think it might be a little bit better, but it's definitely like of the exclusive RPGs on Xbox, it's definitely one of the better ones. If Tales of Vesperia was still exclusive, I might actually present the argument that Tales of Vesperia is even a better game than Lost Odyssey. Or at least I just prefer it more. But I think that, I think there's a lot of good RPGs on Xbox, and Lost Odyssey is definitely a good one. I mean, it's really like the quote unquote real Final Fantasy 13. Even though I'm actually the person who actually likes Final Fantasy 13 a lot more than a lot of other people do.
Oh, no. I think 13 is very respectable as maybe not like a Final Fantasy per se, but as like a JRPG, I enjoyed it. But 13-2 and Lightning Return, like I just replayed them this year. Or started them this year, and it's disappointing. It made my Game of the Year list as biggest disappointment.
Just because you didn't like either Lightning Returns or 13-2?
Yeah, I like 13 more, even though the combat is worse. Well, that's one thing to highlight. The gameplay is significantly worse than 13, but I enjoyed the characters more in 13-1.
Yeah, I agree with that because I definitely think, for example, the story in Lightning Returns pretty bad. But I don't know. I like the gameplay. I like the gameplay a lot in Lightning Returns. I think it's my favorite of the three as far as combat is.
It is. It's the best. They definitely refined it down to like the way the costume. It's kind of silly that you change costumes. Almost feels like Sailor Moon type stuff. But I love it. I like the combat.
Yeah, same here. I believe it or not, I actually dig the idea of having the different costumes. And some of the weird unlockable costumes that you get in that game are really cool, or even just the DLC ones that you got with the costumes from different games. Just having the Tomb Raider costume in that game was just so ridiculous, but also great because I love Tomb Raider. It's one of my favorite franchises, so having that in a Final Fantasy game was just so cool. But that game was I like Lightning Returns a lot, but the story in that game is not great. So I agree with you on that point, where I think the story in the first one's definitely the best.
Which, to keep it in Final Fantasy, I went back to listen to your stuff beforehand because I always, scope out the competition before we get you in here.
Mhm.
And back in like the first episode of RPG Cave, this is like, I remember when you started like years ago almost, like, because you've been in the business a while, and you guys like, what really needs a remake? Crisis Core. It's trapped on the PSP. It needs to come out. And then I go back and I listen to like I think, your most recent X Drive podcast, and you're talking about like, yeah, man, I've been playing Crisis Core, and I'm like, what a time skip. Like, this is a serious jump.
Yeah, I mean, I never thought it would actually leave the PSP. For the longest time, I thought it was just going to get stuck there forever. But I'm glad that they brought it over. And in fact, I wish they almost did more with the gameplay, because I felt maybe Crisis Core the reunion was a little too safe for what I was kind of expecting. But I think it was awesome. But yeah, it's honestly the first episode of the RPG Cave is it's one of my newer podcasts actually. And we've only been doing that one for about 2.5 years now.
Newer podcast for 2.5 years.
Well, I mean,
that's older than our show.
I mean, I've been podcasting since 2014 at this point. So,
oh my god,
almost 10 years at this point now, which is kind of scary to think about. But I'm also an old man, so that's kind of how that works. But yeah, like the RPG Cave is kind of a newer thing for me. So yeah, I can imagine like we might see some other stuff that I talked about a long time ago, and then going back and listening to it now, and then comparing it to games we might be having announced this year, for example, might blow like 2 years ago Ryan's mind, looking back on things.
Which, dear listeners at home, be sure to go check out all the Carpool Gaming podcast and the RPG Cave. Links will be down in the description.
Yeah, we don't even just have the two podcasts I'm on because they're great. Like Xbox Drive is an Xbox podcast, and the RPG Cave is an RPG podcast. But we have a Nintendo podcast if you're into Nintendo. We have a PlayStation podcast if you're into PlayStation. We have an interview series called We the Gamer Cast. So if you're into like even some non-gaming stuff, that's actually a really good show as well. So we have a lot of cool stuff over at Carpool Gaming. So go check us out there.
Nice. So Ryan, we are a cooperative gaming podcast at heart. And this week we're going to be talking about Dark Pictures anthology Devil and Me. But since you're a new guest on the show, we get to ask you our signature question. Do you have a notable co-op memory you'd like to share? Like I know you talked about World of Warcraft in your podcast, that you played that for a long time, but you're also a Final Fantasy 14 fan. You have anything in those veins? So
oddly enough, with Final Fantasy 14, despite the fact that it's an MMO, I hardly ever play that game with people I know in real life. It's mostly a very solo experience for me. And then when there is group content, I'm usually joining random groups or, hugging, as the term is called. But believe it or not, the community in Final Fantasy 14 is so amazing that honestly, those experiences have always been super smooth and not very toxic or anything like that. So that's always been a fun experience. World of Warcraft, I like ran for years and years and years because I was a guild master for a long time, and we were part of some
that's serious cooperation.
Guilds. Yeah, like trying to get a group of 25 people together to try and do all the same thing all at the same time takes some serious coordination. But so there are definitely memories with that. But honestly, my favorite co-op memories actually are not coming from MMOs, but mostly, stuff growing up because, I'm a kid who grew up in the 80s. So me and my brother Kyle, we used to go to arcades all the time. And a lot of my special co-op memories actually are shared with him. And I remember there was one year where our family decided to go to Universal Studios Florida for vacation. And of course, my dad made the mistake of walking by this arcade that they had set up at Universal Studios. Is like, all right, I got to go do something over there because I think he may care of my little brother at the time. Yeah. So he's like, all right, you guys stop in here for the arcade in a bit, and I'll come and see you guys in a bit. So Kyle and I see this arcade machine for the Sega arcade game that y'all might not have ever heard of called Virtual On. It's a mech arcade game where it's similar to like the Gundam series if you're into anime or other mech shows.
Built a Gundam just a few weeks ago.
So at the time, him and I both were like really into mech shows. So we saw this arcade machine where it's literally this sit down unit with this giant joystick, and it felt like you were in like a Gundam or a mecha suit. And we had the object of the game was for us to fight against other robots. So because there were two machines set up side by side, and we spent like $50 on that machine. It wasn't even just $1 a play. I think it was like 25 cents a play. Like we spent like 3 hours there, even though we were at Universal Studios. We could have been going on all these rides and doing all kinds of other stuff, but we spent like the whole afternoon playing Virtual On and just having a blast with this like really fun arcade machine back in the day. So of all my co-op memories with Kyle and growing up, like I felt like that was actually a really special one and one that was really memorable for me. So that's actually one of probably my favorite co-op memory, actually, if you had to ask me.
I really like how you brought up arcade machines, because that's never come up before.
Yeah,
and
that's a new one.
I was kind of hoping you'd say something like Time Crisis, but then you, with the whole arcade cabinet being built like the inside of a mech, the cockpit, it really reminded me of all of the awesome arcade machines that I kind of miss. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever played the Silent Scope games.
Yeah.
Where they had an actual sniper rifle and there was a miniature screen inside of the scope that was actually a zoomed in part of the screen you were pointing at. Mm-hmm. I love those games, especially when they had more than one next to each other, because you'd be able to fight the person in the other game.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, Silent Scope is a lot of fun, and there was a lot of other great arcade machines like that. You know, Terminator 2 was another one that we sunk a lot of time into, because each of us had like an Uzi, and you're shooting Terminators and trying to protect John Connor. We spent a lot of time playing like the Turtles arcade machine or Simpsons and stuff like that. So like I think the arcade was like a really special time and place kind of thing for co-op games. And it's actually cool to see, because I don't know if either of y'all have been to Japan before, but going to Japan and seeing, the arcade culture being alive still there, and actually going to, the arcades there, like the Sega arcades, and playing, Taiko Drum Master with each other.
Oh my goodness.
A bunch of other co-op games. Like it's so special to be able to still go play arcade games. Like in a lot of ways, I think like going to a really nice arcade is one of the best co-op experiences you could probably have out there. Even though you're not on your comfy couch, there's a lot of great arcade machines out there, and a lot of stuff we miss too, like even stuff you just can't do at home, like Star Wars Battle Pod, or like Afterburner, and having like the flight cockpit that actually like flips upside down, like stuff like that. Like you just can't really replicate at home. So
they have a cockpit that flips upside down like a roller coaster.
Yeah, I mean, there were standard Afterburner ones that cockpit machines that didn't move, but other ones that you had to like strap yourself in order to play, because they would like tilt and move like you're flying the plane in Afterburner, and doing barrel rolls a lot in Afterburner was something you really need to do to survive. So it was definitely a nauseating experience, but it's definitely one that you could do. So
my only experience with the Japanese arcade culture is just from Yakuza. I'm a huge Yakuza fan, and it really, I think I read in the news somewhere that Sega is selling a lot of their arcades, and that's so depressing. I wonder how that's going to affect the next Yakuza game.
I mean, they'll still probably have arcade machines in the next Yakuza game, but it just will be like, you just won't have as much emphasis on it, maybe, or I don't know. I think it'll be unchanged for the games, but it's just, that's a sad moment, especially because Sega really owns like half the arcades in Japan, and then the other half of them are owned by a different company that I'm, forgetting off the top of my head. So it is kind of a big blow to that industry, but at the same time, you never know. It might come back around again, where people might be going back to arcades. We're already seeing that, here in Toronto, where I live, because barcades are becoming more and more popular here, where bars will actually turn their bars into arcades, and then sell alcohol there, and then you go there and play a whole unlimited. Like you usually pay a cover charge of like $5, and then you just go play arcade games with your friends while you're drinking. Like,
wait, they're just free game. You just play whatever you want.
Yeah, like because you pay the cover charge, and that covers the cost of maintaining the games. But yeah, a lot of there's one here in Toronto called Tilt, that we went to when some of the other carpool gaming folks were down, and they have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Daytona USA and a lot of other arcade machines that are just set up for you, ready to play, and you just pay the cover charge to get in, and you don't have to pop any quarters in, which is really nice, because carrying around a lot of quarters is very annoying.
or being down on lives in like House of the Dead, and just having to send somebody out with $5, just like, please give me more.
Run to the quarter machine.
Yeah. But it also could be a fun challenge too, being like, hey, I've only got $2 in quarters. Can I finish Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game? Like that's a nice way of challenging yourself to see if you can, take as little damage as possible and maybe fight through some of the arcade mechanics that are basically there in those games to try and drain your
the quarter crunching mechanics.
Yeah, like the little zombie monkeys now it's the dead that immediately hit you as soon as they show up, and I'm just, it's so annoying.
Yeah, or the one hit kill enemies in the Simpsons arcade machine, stuff like that. Like there's a lot of the arcade machines are really built around that kind of thing, or especially like light gun games in particular. We're like really bad about that kind of thing. Like, not so much Time Crisis, but some of the worst ones are definitely like you will have enemies that are just giant health pools, and if you get hit twice, then you're popping another quarter in. So,
all right. So I think this is a perfect way to roll into the games we've been playing this week. So we'll start with you, Nave. What have you been playing?
I've been a real simple boy for the past, we took probably about a 2-week break. We recorded back a couple of episodes. Just been playing Persona 5 the entire time. This game, it's really, really good. It's really good.
What? No way. You mean the game that's had a cult following forever and X-Boys have just been praying that it comes and shows up on console someday?
Yeah. It's taking up a lot of my time. I'm trying to just get through it. And not that it's like negative. It's like the literal polar opposite of Kingdoms of Amalur, where I was just rushing to get through that game. I'm kind of savoring Persona 5. It's been a nice little escape from reality. And I put up a poll with a bunch of other games. Like I was like, what should Nave's next long game be? With Nier Automata, Lost Judgment, the Yakuza spinoff, Ni no Kuni, and the new Chained Echoes that's on Game Pass. And which game do you think actually won out of those four, Philip?
Well, you told me beforehand that Ni no Kuni was in the lead, but based on you asking me, I feel like there's a switch up. So I'm going to go for the dark horse Chained Echoes.
What do you think about that, Ryan? What do you think? Have you played any of those games?
I was actually leaning towards Chained Echoes before you said anything, Phil.
I actually know nothing about Chained Echoes, which
exactly.
Is good. It's kind of my style. I like to jump into games and not know anything because that's where you get maximum surprise. But what actually surprised me is that Nier Automata snuck in from behind and won by like 3 votes.
Well, that game is fantastic. So play it. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, well, when I had the poll up for 2 days, and the first day, Ni no Kuni was winning, and it was like 64%. It was like a blowout. And so when I woke up the next day and saw that Nier was about to win, I was like, the fan base must have pulled one. You know what I mean? They must have came out. But yeah, that's probably going to be the next game that I play. Hopefully, I get some like shorter games in between there. I want to move Final Fantasy Recore or the
Crisis Core.
I almost said Chain of Memories. Crisis Core, yeah, thank you. I want to move Crisis Core up after hearing how short it is. So that sounds nice. I might slide that in between those two. It's a nice little Oreo, a reverse Oreo.
Reverse Oreo.
Yeah. Crisis Core is a really good game and definitely on the shorter side too, like you said. So if you're looking for an RPG that's not super long, I definitely think it's a worthy pickup. Plus, if you've never played it on PSP, like I think you're gonna have a blast with it.
I miss the PSP so much. Mine got stolen. Did you? So you had a PSP because you were talking in your first episode about. Oh wow. Did you ever play a game called? There's this game I recently rediscovered called Popa LaCroix.
No, but I have heard of Popa LaCroix, but I've never played it.
I don't even remember what kind of gameplay loop it has. I know it's an RPG, but all I can remember is that the art style was amazing, and I would play that game and this ATV game, and I would listen to the music videos on there. I miss the PSP so much.
Yeah, I love the PSP. It's a great console, but yeah, there was a lot of like hidden gems that are just stuck there, or games that I just want to see ported. Like Jeanne d'Arc is another one that I bring up a lot, which is like a tactical role-playing game from level 5, but it's based around, like an anime version of Joan of Arc's story. So
that's interesting.
There's a lot of like unique games on PSP that just never came to other consoles. So Crisis Core, I hope, is like the first of more companies maybe pulling games from PSP and bringing them over to modern consoles. Even just Square Enix, because Square had a ton of stuff on PSP that I would love to see them maybe do more with down the road.
I kind of want to challenge Square Enix to a fucking boxing match, like with how much they're neglecting the Xbox, because I don't really play on my PlayStation, so and I don't have a Switch anymore, so I've just been watching the nothing coming to Xbox for a little while now.
This year from Square Enix was actually pretty good for Xbox when you have Crisis Core, Star Ocean, Diaphode Chronicle. I think they had, or sorry, last year I think they had a lot of good games come to Xbox.
Well, we want them all.
This year you're right with
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yeah, 7 Remake not coming to Xbox. Like those definitely hurt. Final Fantasy 16 not coming to Xbox. Like, yeah.
Or I just want 14 as well. Like, can I get 14 on Xbox?
I've been asking for that on the Xbox Drive for 4 years now, and it still hasn't happened.
It still hasn't happened.
Yeah, one of these days.
Like Phil Spencer should go up to Crying Jim Ryan and be like, "Hey, you guys can have follow
Forza.
me here. Fantasy Star Universe 2.
Oh no, come on.
Give us
That's
Final
not
Fantasy.
a trade.
It's already coming to PlayStation though, so I mean they're already getting that. They can't use that as a bargaining chip. But I think Yoshi P, the producer and lead on Final Fantasy 14, mentioned in multiple interviews that it's not even an exclusivity thing. There's more of a logistical problem behind the scenes that they can't talk about.
Okay.
That is more the reason why it's not on Xbox and only on PlayStation and PC. So I think until they solve whatever it is behind the scenes, that game unfortunately won't be on Xbox, because I guess there might have been some choices made on the Xbox side a long time ago that they just haven't remedied yet, as to why that game hasn't come over.
Well, now that I'm thinking about handheld RPGs not coming to Xbox, I mean, how did you feel about the Mega Man Battle Network games from Capcom? Did you ever play those?
So I never played them, so I'm actually really excited for that collection. And the fact that they announced it and it's not coming to Xbox after all the other collections did, I'm just like, come on, Capcom, what are we doing here?
It's so sad too, because it's like, I don't like Mega Man, but I love the Battle Network series. And so it's like, people were saying on Twitter, you know how Twitter goes, but people are saying the Xbox gamers don't support these games, and it's like, I just don't like this is the only Mega Man game I would buy. Like, of course it skips me. It almost feels spiteful.
Yeah,
I take everything personally.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at least it's coming to literally everything else under the sun, so there are a lot of options out there. Yeah. But you're right, like having that on Xbox would be awesome too, especially because again, we got all the other Mega Man collections, which of course I really appreciate because I'm actually a huge Mega Man fan, and believe it or not, you know, we're kind of like opposites here, because I played all the Mega Man games before the collections came out, and then I played them again. But I never played the Battle Network games because I wasn't really playing a ton of GBA when those games were coming out, so I just wasn't really into those.
All right, Nate, do you have any more games?
Oh no, Persona 5. I forgot that's what we were talking about.
Do you want to say anything more about it? Who's best girl or best guy?
Best girl. I'm still doing the harem route. Actually, I don't know if I've said this on the pod yet, though. I'm following like a spreadsheet, and I actually just earlier today I was talking to Sojiro, the guy who you're staying at his like cafe. And he's like a father figure to you right now. And I was supposed to rank up and I didn't. And I almost threw up. I was so scared because I'm like 70 hours into the game. And somehow I didn't have him plussed up enough. But there's a girl who fortune tells, and you can ask her to like improve your relationship with people by reading tarot cards and stuff. This all sounds like insanity if you don't know Persona. But I ended up kind of riding the ship, and I'm hoping that it's like, you know, like the butterfly effect thing happened in like two months into the game, and then now it's slowly unaligning everything. I'm so scared now, so I'm really paying attention to that spreadsheet.
Sounds like a lot of work, Nave. I'm not going to do that when I play it.
I recommend you don't. I highly recommend you just play it how you like.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get that platinum trophy or that full 1,000 gamer score, you don't have to follow a spreadsheet, but you do have to at least know to do certain things, and rank certain things up. But you're right. I don't think you have to go full spreadsheet, but you should at least do a little bit of research to know, like, okay, how do I get to, what do I need to do in the game to get to experience the royal content? That's like a big thing, because if you don't make certain actions at certain points in the game, you don't get to see the extra content in the game. So you lose like 30 hours of game.
What, really?
Yeah.
That is so
that's a real thing.
That's more obnoxious than the stupid Dark Souls 2 DLC where it's like you have to know to go to the well to like go through the gates and stuff like that. God.
Yeah. I mean, it's Atlas. That's just something that Atlas does in their games. So I don't know. They're just very old school in that way, because that's definitely something you'd find in like an NES game or something like that.
Or like
old school
Wario Land or whatever. Like, yeah, we got secret levels that you're never going to see unless you're like 5% of gamers that,
yeah,
whatever.
Or like Star Road in Super Mario World. You would never know to go there unless you found it by accident, or if you had Nintendo power at the time.
So what games have you been playing, Ryan?
So oddly enough, over the holidays, I've been doing a lot of traveling. Like I went to, my folks' place for Christmas, and then I went to, my girlfriend's place for New Year's. So I've barely been home. So it's been, I haven't had a ton of stuff that I've been playing, but I have had my Switch with me. So I've been playing a lot of Switch. First of all, I just got to throw out the mainstay that's not a Switch game. I've been playing a lot of World of Warcraft with my girlfriend. We've been kind of going through the Dragonflight campaign. And that's been a lot of fun to do together. Dragonflight is the newest expansion for World of Warcraft. And
what flavor is it? Like the last one was like Aztec flavored, right? What's this one flavored?
This one is it's weird. It's all about like these ancient dragons, and you're going to this isle that's full of like elementals. So it's very like elemental kind of themed and dragon themed, because the whole premise is like you get to team up with a dragon lord, and they become like your you basically like ride dragons around this big island, because even though a lot of World of Warcraft expansions, during the earlier parts of the expansions, they'll ban flying, so you won't be able to fly around the areas until later in the expansions. They give you flying a little bit early thanks to the ability to ride on the back of these dragons, which is kind of like a refreshing take, I think, on this, but especially because it's not like unlimited, like it's not an unlimited ability that you can just use forever during the time frame. But it's pretty cool. The story is not amazing or anything like that, but it's just fun. I really like World of Warcraft. It's very much like a good podcast game. So if you're if you want to listen to this podcast and want to have a good game to pair with it, like World of Warcraft, for example, is actually a pretty good game for that. But other than that, I played a lot of River City Girls 2. That's a game I talked about a lot on our Game of the Year episode over at Carpool Gaming. It's one of my favorite games to come out last year. And because it actually just came out back on the 13th of December. And I'm basically on my second playthrough at this point, playing through as different characters and just still having a blast with River City Girls 2. I think like Way Forward really knocked it out of the park with that game. And yes, it has some technical problems in the sense that the last game ran at 60 frames per second, so it's weird that this one in the same engine doesn't. And there's some load times between some of the areas you go to, but those are really my only complaints with River City Girls 2. I think it's amazing. It's got incredible music. It's got some great visuals. The combat's fun, and I love the fact too that it's like a beat 'em up RPG, and it really stands apart from a lot of other beat 'em up games, especially since we had a bunch of them come out in 2022, like Shredder's Revenge, as well as the Cowabunga Collection and some other stuff. So River City Girls 2 has definitely been at like kind of like the top of my pile of games I've been playing while I've been on the road on my Switch. And then just more Pokemon, more Mario Kart. I'm more just playing those very casually though, and just playing them at kind of like a snail's pace at this point.
It's a pretty good spread.
Nintendo really has a great way of like just having concentrated fun in their video games, and I've been kind of missing that. I've been playing a lot more serious, like I have to paying attention to storylines and stuff like that kind of games, and I really just want a Switch again just to play Mario Kart or Smash or something, and just like experience joy again, bring some joy to my life.
Yeah. Well, I did decide just randomly, hey, my girlfriend was off doing something else. I'm like, I'm just going to beat Super Mario Brothers 3 again. And I just beat it twice in a row, just because it's just fun just to pick up and play that game. Like that game's like the ultimate comfort food for me, or something like Super Metroid, or like NES and Super Nintendo games for me. I just are like catnip. I love them so much. So that's kind of what I've been playing. And I'm kind of I'm also don't want to start anything big right now too, because we are coming up on review season happening again. Because of course there's a bajillion games coming out, starting with One Piece Odyssey next week. And then of course we got the 2 Persona re-releases, as well as Fire Emblem the next week, and then Dead Space remake. So I am in for a giant pile of games to play for review over on Carpool. So I'm very excited for that.
There's so many games this year.
Yeah, well, just this month in general is ridiculous. But you're right. Like this year is going to be one of the biggest years of gaming.
A lot of the Xbox games too.
Yeah,
like with Starfield and Redfall and all them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Forza as well is also supposed to be coming out in the spring, they said. So I think we're going to be hearing about those games pretty soon. Sean and I talked about it on the Xbox Drive today when we were doing our predictions. But I would imagine we hear about like release dates for all those games in the next month or two at this point, because they got to get them out. Because it sounds like they're all coming, like those 3 games sound like they're just first half of this year. So
yeah. Well, I feel like there was a Xbox dude that made a statement that they wanted like a core title on Game Pass every month or something.
Yeah, that was something that Phil talked about a little bit. Where
I just didn't remember who the quote was from.
The ultimate goal of Game Pass is to have like a one big game there a month, which is why like something we talked about on the show today was, do they need to species out a lot more, and can they really release 3 of their biggest games kind of in the first 6 months of the year? And I absolutely think like that's what Game Pass is trying to do. That's the motto, because I think they've got more coming out this fall. So I think they kind of need these 3 games out of their way, especially because Redfall and Starfield were supposed to come out last year, and then Forza was supposed to be kind of the big game this spring to carry them over. So now that they're all kind of jammed together, I think, especially because they're so different from each other as well, I think they can totally all coexist and all kind of release kind of back to back to back in the first 6 months.
Talking about a good podcast game, Forza Motorsport is awesome at that. Like that is such a great turn your brain off game and just drive, follow the line.
So
what have you been playing, Philip? Look at that. I remembered you.
Oh, thanks, man. I have been just head first in my New Year's resolution. Yet last year I only finished rolled credits on 55 games, and I decided that wasn't good enough because my backlog is out of control. So I, going for a big hundo this year. And Nave, I've already completed 12 games.
Are you cheating somehow?
No, I've just, these are games that I've just been, you start a game, you play for 8 hours, and then you leave it installed on your hard drive and don't play it for, a year.
Yep.
These are the games I'm going back for at this point. So I'm still grinding on Nobody Saves the World and Pokemon Scarlet Violet or whatever that I got for Christmas. Those games are good, and I know Nobody Saves the World is leaving Game Pass this month, so I want to finish it real quick. But the first game I finished this year was Earth Defense Force 2025.
Oh, finally, my God.
Clicked on all the bugs.
Ryan, do you have any knowledge of Earth Defense Force, this franchise?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I haven't played any of them, but I know of them being, or I shouldn't say I've never played them. I played the demo or a couple of demos for the games, but I've never actually bought one before, if that makes sense.
You just click on bugs. That's the whole game with different guns.
Fantastic.
Yeah. It's like a cookie clicker mentality almost, where you get the way the game, you level up like your health bar too by just picking up one item that the bugs drop, and they give you 1 point of health permanently. So that's where it just stacks. And then you're like, okay, I can infinitely raise my health bar. How can you ever lose this game? This game has like 6 difficulties and they just get insane at the later points. I don't know how you beat it on Inferno. So there's that. The Chant, which is like a AA Resident Evil horror game. Have either of you heard of this one?
I have. I saw a lot of trailers for it. This one was on my radar last year, but unfortunately, kind of missed the cut. I only finished 83 games last year, so
83. That's so many.
Well, that's low for me. So,
oh my God.
But yeah, it's just I think the timing more than anything when it came out was more the reason why I didn't check this one out, because I was excited for it because I think it looked really cool from the trailers, but it came out in November, so it was kind of a big ask to play that game when it came out.
This game looks kind of fucking cool,
dude. The game is really good. Like, I definitely want to recommend it. It only took me, I think, like 7 hours to beat, and it's just, I don't want to do any spoilers for it, but the whole premise is basically like you go to what are those things? A cult, pretty much, because you have some trauma, and your trauma is that you weren't paying attention and your sister drowned while you're at the lake. No, that's in the first part of the game. It's okay.
But you're gonna say something like you weren't paying attention in class and someone threw chalk at you. I was like,
No.
what is this person? What are you, Joker from Persona?
And of course, you go there, culty things happen, and all your fears come to life, and you are haunted by your sister. And it's so weird because like she's a monster, but you can't fight her, and she just shows up every once in a while like a big daddy in BioShock, and you just hear her. You start to hear water dripping, even though it's not raining or anything, while you're at the cult compound, and you're just like, wait, what's that? And it just gets louder and louder. And then apparently, like there was like I think you were in Canada too. So there were like a bunch of mosquitoes or flies or something around the lake, and they're like swarmed around the body. So you just hear water dripping and these flies buzzing. And eventually she just comes around the corner and starts screaming about how it's all your fault. And God, it is so thematic. The sound design is just incredible. That is like the number one thing they nailed in this game is the feeling of dread of me just like, because, you know, it's like Resident Evil. Half the time you spend double backing because you're trying to solve a puzzle and you don't know where you're going. And you're just trying to like, oh, I need to get another green key card, of course. But then you go into just like another room and then you hear dripping and you're like, oh no, is that in the level or is that my sister coming to, I don't know, seek revenge? Good game.
Wait, so is there any combat at all, or is it like more like Outlast?
There is combat. Like it is like Resident Evil combat where you have weapons and you attack. But it's good. I recommend it. Next one, XO1, which is like Tiny Wings meets Walking Simulator. I don't know. Are either of you guys familiar about this one?
I don't know what Tiny Wings is.
Nope.
Okay, Tiny Wings is a mobile game, and the whole premise is you're a bird. You're a round bird, and you're able to increase your weight, and you slide down hills, but you need to let go to decrease your weight, and you launch off, and you just want to fly as far as you can, and you have to like time it just right as you're going down the hill to increase your mass. It's like that in 3D. The game is beautiful. Just go play it. It's on Game Pass. I feel like this is taking forever, so I'm just going to roll through this. Cadence of Hyrule, beat that one too. The game is really good. It's Metal Hellsinger, but Zelda, kind of.
I think it's Crypt of the Necrodancer, but Zelda.
Yeah, that too.
It's literally Crypt of the Necrodancer, but with Zelda.
I didn't play that one, but I played Hellsinger. It's a rhythm combat game. It's good. Next one, Earth Defense Force 2017, the one before 2025. I went back and finished that one too. Yeah, I beat both of them. Dude, 2017 was a grind to get through.
You need to spend some time with your family, Philip. How many fucking games did you? Those two games take forever to beat.
Yeah, but I've been milking them for the last like 2 years. Where like, you know,
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Next one, Devil and Me. We played it this week for this episode. Easy one.
What?
I know. Then next one, Donut County.
Nice.
It's a silly puzzle game, but it's a lightly puzzle because you just put things in the hole. Which, what got me?
You are the hole.
You are the hole, yeah. But what really got me into Donut County is it's referenced in High on Life. Because I was playing High on Life, and they were talking about video games, and they're like, hey, you should go play Donut County. It's an indie game.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they referenced, and I'm like, maybe I should go play Donut County.
It's so funny.
Next one, Gorogoa, also on Game Pass. This is a puzzle storybook with pretty interesting art about a guy becomes a dragon or something. I don't know. There's no text. It's very subjective, I guess. Or like, however you feel about it.
It's starting to feel like you did cheat, Philip. A lot of these games look like they're 1 hour long.
I marked how many hours it took me to beat them. It took me 2 hours to beat Gongoria. 2 hours on Donut County.
I believe you.
Okay.
I mean, it's not his fault. The games are short.
Forager. I thought this game was going to be short. This game took me 22 hours to beat. Which it's like Stardew combined with Clicker Hero.
Oh,
so
fuck,
it's like,
don't tell me that, dude.
Yeah, so picture like Stardew, but take away all the relationship crap, all the farm building crap, and it's only resources. You only mine. You only farm. You only do like just that stuff. Like it's just
there's RuneScape?
Yeah, I guess it's just RuneScape. You just do that. And then it's like you set up, all of a sudden you start doing like automation where you have forges automatically feeding into crafting tables. And it's a single player experience. So once you ascend to godhood and you own all the resources, there's no point to play it anymore. But it was a fun 22 hours. And then Arrow, which is a very difficult rhythm game. I beat it on normal because there's only 15 songs, but it is very difficult. Nave, I recommend it.
Yeah, I've already played it. It's pretty good.
Then High on Life. Apparently this game's been given some beef. I finished High on Life. Nave, you played that one? Gun game? It's like Scorn, but funny.
I literally haven't played it since we talked about it last, like 3 weeks ago. But I mean, I didn't hate it. I'm going to go back to it, but Persona 5, I can't stop thinking about it. So I've got to fucking finish Persona before I do anything else.
Brian, I know you talked about High on Life in your other show. Have you played it since then?
No, I never picked it up, but it's one of those things where, again, just poor timing for me personally, because I had like 4 games I was playing in December alone. So it's the one that flew under the radar, especially too, because I'm not really a huge fan of Justin Roiland's humor, which I know is like, if you're not into that from what the reviews say, you're not going to be into this game. So I think that plays a major part as to whether or not you're going to like it. So that's part of the reason why I want to play it eventually, but like it can wait. I'll get there eventually.
Yeah, those games that are comedy oriented video games, you have to be into that comedy. Otherwise it's going to be nails on chalkboard for 15 hours.
I think you can make the argument that there are some comedic games that can win you over with just the gameplay. And even if you're not into the comedy stuff, you can still, find a way to really enjoy it. But for what I've heard of High on Life or what I've seen from the game, it's just like, it doesn't sound like it's that type of game that's able to do that, I think.
Yeah.
I don't watch Rick and Morty or anything. And I'd say about half the jokes would land with me and the other half would just slide off me and I just wouldn't even notice them.
Yeah. It's interesting too, because it's like there's always joke happening. You know what I mean? Like you're always like getting bombarded by the jokes. So
that I hate, that I really hated this one joke where all the guns have a secondary fire called their trick hole. And that's the joke, is trick hole. It's supposed to be sexual or their butthole or something like that. That's the gist. It's supposed to be gross. But for instance, Kenny, your main gun, or your first gun, who's just a pistol, he shoots a slime ball out of his trick hole. And basically like every single firefight, he's like, hey, don't forget to shoot a slime ball out of my trick hole. It'll be good. It'll be a good attack, or something like that. I'm like, I don't need to hear this again. I hear this every fight because Kenny's like the best gun, even later on in the game. Like I just use Kenny through 90% of the game.
Yeah. Whenever you go through the tutorial for that secondary fire, if you stand around the guys, like this happens in a lot of instances in this game, where if you just don't do anything, you can just see how long the bit goes on. So a bunch of guys that you're supposed to shoot with the slime ball and knock them into the water, and they're just standing around going, oh man, it'd really suck if we got hit by some kind of slime ball and fell into this. Man, that water's gross. I don't want to be in that water. Do you want to be in that water? Like they just sit there and talk for a while, and it's like, I just, out of curiosity, I always sit there and like listen to stuff like that in any kind of video game.
Yeah, one part I really did like is at one point they referenced Code Lyoko and That 70s Show, and I'm like, what a cut!
What?
No,
Code Lyoko?
They referenced Code Lyoko in this game for some reason.
That's the forehead. That's the forehead anime.
It's a forehead. No, well, it's not an anime. I think it was a cartoon that they made look like anime.
That's not good. That's not a recipe for success.
Well, I mean, they did it with Avatar: Last Airbender, and everybody loved that.
That I sent you that meme from Code Lyoko where it's that chick, it's the chick, and on her forehead is the copy pasta of I've got 300 combined kills, but it's like really tiny, and it's like the whole thing's written on her forehead, because that's the thing about that show, is everyone's foreheads are enormous. So like I don't know.
Well, you're playing Persona right now, also infamous for the forehead.
Yeah, there's a couple. I just ran into a specific girl. I'm like in September right now, and so I don't know if I want to spoil it, but she has a pretty big forehead, and her hair doesn't help because it's parted right down the middle, and so it is like a curtain, like to present the forehead to you. It's really funny.
All right, and then we played through Streets of Rage. Maybe we'll do an episode on it. I don't know, but this is the first Streets of Rage. Are you familiar with this one, Ryan?
Of course.
She played River City Girls too. I assume you like the beat 'em ups.
Yeah, I mean, I played Streets of Rage on Sega Channel back in the day, of course, because I didn't own a copy of this game. But Sega Channel, of course, for folks that don't know what that is,
please
back
explain
in the day, this was Game Pass before Game Pass existed. Where in the 90s, Sega actually had a subscription service you could actually pay for through your cable company, where they would give you this specially designed Genesis cartridge that you would plug like a coaxial cable into the side of, to basically plug a cable line into it, and it would allow you to connect to a server hosted by the cable company to then download Genesis games to the cartridge and then play them, off the cartridge itself, as if you owned the cartridge itself. So it was kind of like a subscription service, like Game Pass was, but for Genesis games in the 90s. So I played a lot of games that way, like Shining Force 2, which is like one of my favorite RPGs of all the time. I played that way, or even games like Streets of Rage, because I had Streets of Rage 2. Like me and my brother spent so much time playing the original Streets of Rage 2 on cartridge, but we wanted to play the first one. We didn't own it, but we had Sega Channel, so we could play it there. That was on the service the entire time.
Sega and the cable company can figure out how to flash ROMs to your drives way back in the day, but we can't get Square to get Final Fantasy 14 on Xbox.
and yet, that's just the world we live in. Where, before the internet existed, you could download, games to your Sega Genesis, which is just
the
funny
worst
to think
timeline, I guess.
Yeah. Which, okay, that's enough of my backlog. That's 12 games. I got, was that 88 left to go? I think I'm going to make it.
Yeah, you're on pace to get like 800 games this year if you're going to.
I cannot consistently do this. This is like me I'm trying so hard to go back and clear out my hard drive before I download new games. But then I download High on Life, or we get stupid Divinity, and I'm putting extra hours in Divinity, and I'm like, man, I can't do this. I need to finish these other games.
We're both playing Divinity 2, Divinity 2, Original Sin as well. So, I mean, do you know anything about that, Ryan? Because that game is actually really fucking sweet.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun. I don't really love CRPGs all that much. So Divinity Original Sin was not a game I was super into, but I know people love that game. So
I don't have a whole lot of experience with Dungeons and Dragons or anything, but we played a game called Solasta, which is worse Divinity. And I've realized that I probably would really, really like Dungeons and Dragons, if I got an actual consistent group together.
Yeah. I used to play Dungeons and Dragons in high school, and then, in college as well, and just had a blast playing it. So as long as you got good imagination, D&D is a ton of fun. But I don't know, I've never really enjoyed that transition from literal Dungeons and Dragons, paper gameplay to
the gamified,
playing that in-game form. I've just never really been into that. The Baldur's Gate games, I feel the same way about Icewind Dale, Neverwinter Nights, stuff like that. So
it's an angry dog. All right, Nave,
pissed.
what have you purchased this week? Any winter sale still going on?
Hold on, I gotta use Lear on my dog and see if it's effective. Couple of games. I spent so much money for the countdown sale on Xbox, which was insane. We talked enough about that, but a couple of games went on sale. One's called Fluffy Horde. Just this indie game that kind of looks silly. It kind of has an Adventure Time art style or something. I'm not really sure what this game is. It might be some kind of tower defense or something. I don't know. I got another one called Bladed Fury, which is I think it was a mobile game before, but it's a 2D side-scrolling hack and slash, I think. And the art style reminds me of something, but I don't know what. It reminds me of another 2D game that looks just like this. I can't really remember. Maple Story, that's it. Thank you. So I also got the Devil May Cry collection, the first 3. And nice. I'm probably going to try to beat those again. But those games, I remember the very first one made me very, very angry. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through. I might be able to do the third one. But I don't have patience. I don't have enough patience.
All right. That's quite a collection. I definitely want to go back and play the old DMCs. But more than that, I want to play Bayonetta 2 and 3. Because I still haven't played 2 yet. And I really like
I haven't even. Is it Switch exclusive? I can't remember.
It is. No. It's also on Switch. Hold on. Correct myself. It's on Wii U and Switch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course. Let me break up my Wii U.
I think I might own it. I still have a Wii U. I still have a Wii U sitting.
See?
Oh my god.
Wii U is great. I mean, I literally have my Wii U hooked up. It's on my shelf right next to me. You can't see it. It's off camera.
Dude, I actually like the Wii U's tablet. I think it got a lot of hate. But I remember when I first saw it, I was like, what in the fuck is this? But whenever you actually get your hands on it, you're like, this is surprisingly comfortable. This is more comfortable than holding an iPad. Because it's got the triggers, it just perfectly sits and rests on your hand. And it's really large, which is one of the reasons why I don't like the Sony controllers. Besides the DualSense fucks. But the PS4 controller, I hate it. It feels like a little piece of it feels like a kid's toy. And my hands just dominate it. I need the Duke. I need the big old boy controller. That's why I like the Elite so much.
Yeah, as someone who has long fingers, I actually fully understand that sentiment as well. And yeah, the Wii U in particular, like I love the gamepad for similar reasons. Like I think it was a very comfortable controller to use. And then if you don't like that for some reason, you can use the Pro controller, which is also great too. Like the Wii U Pro controller was actually really good, and it has like the best battery life I've ever seen in a controller, where it lasts for like 90 hours on a single charge. It's ridiculous. Like I've barely ever had to charge mine, despite the fact that it's usually my primary controller for Wii U games.
That's how I played Breath of the Wild. I did it Wii U style. Did we talk about everything? Oh, so the next thing is the news, and we were going to talk about my new setup here. You might notice that listeners who listen weekly might notice that my energy is a little bit different. It's because I'm not using I used to record on an Xbox, Ryan. Have you ever even heard of people doing that? I used to go on Zencastr using the Edge browser, and this webcam would be on top of my TV, and I would record that way.
That's amazing. I love it. I love that energy. I mean, whatever you got to do to get started. I mean, the way, like, my setup wasn't, I never used a console to do it. That's a new one for me. But, when I first started doing this, it was like, hey, I have my laptop in my my living room as I'm sitting on the couch in my little less than 720p webcam on my thing with like a headset, like this really like terrible $10 to $15 headset, trying to talk through that and podcast that way. So I definitely understand the hustle there.
I mean, you say whatever it takes, but he was using this for like a year. But even worse, before that, when we first started the pod, I was recording on an iPad through we would use like Discord, and that was terrible. Don't listen to our first 5 episodes, dear listeners at home.
Those were dark days.
Yeah, it's bad.
But the reason why I bring it up is because we got to shout out a couple of people, because we actually received some very generous donations from Friday Night Gamecast. Friday Night Gamecast a while back sent me this microphone that I'm using right now, actually, a little microphone, a little mic stand and everything. And they also sent me a small Chromebook. The Chromebook, unfortunately, didn't work out because the RAM wasn't good enough. So as soon as we would start recording on Zencastr, it would light on fire and it would smell like, cooking toast in my house. So I couldn't use that. But we also got a PC from the Elder Trolls podcast. They sent me a repair job, little computer. We talked about this already on our Patreon episode, but I want to shout these guys out here because this is where most people are going to hear it, and we're really thankful for you guys. It blows me away. I kind of just stare over here and just look at it. It's like it's going to vanish away, like it's a mirage in the Sahara. Yeah,
for just like a couple rando boys that we met on the internet, it's crazy how much help they've given us and all the encouragement we've received. Like, our determination grows. Like, if we were in what is it? Undertale? Yeah, it's like you see the mouse eyeballing the cheese that it may devour one day. Your determination grows.
I think you're filled with determination.
That's it. You're filled with determination. So thank you so much, all the boys that have supported us. I don't know. It's just crazy to believe that we made it this far. And with that, let's thank our patrons. Oh, I can scroll down. Okay. Insane Cracker, Nick and Knight, Hoppel, Michael Superbacker, and Morgan Remington of the Intergalactic Pinecone, which he has recently moved on from streaming, and so we wish him luck in his future endeavors. But thanks, Morgan. Really appreciate all the help, and hopefully we can have you back on the pod.
Indeed. I got to move everything around. I'm so confused.
Well, Nave, what is going on with the Twitter sphere?
I wrote a thing. That's what I'm trying to find right now. I have
it pulled up right here.
So the way I don't have like a light or anything. So for the listeners, that you guys can't see me, but I look like my light, my ceiling light, is directly behind me, and so it overcasts a shadow. I look like fucking Batman when I'm staring into the screen. If there's no white screen pointed back at me,
no, I think of the Hacker Man type look. If you just had a hood up, like a hoodie on,
like an anonymous man, anonymous boy,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Read the thing, Philip.
Okay, I'll read it. Hey guys, we're recording about dark pictures and anthologies, The Devil in Me. Write in your questions and stories, and it can be about the series or anything. And then you put a little picture of the game.
Hey, we got a fourth person in here?
I know. No, that's what you sound like on the internet.
Oh. Got one right in, Philip. What does it say?
Yeah, we got one right in. It's from Melissa, who watched you stream the game, and it just says, "Pet the dog."
Pet the dog.
Pet the dog.
The song. This message is endorsed by Dog Gang,
and
which is a dead meme I'm trying to bring back.
Oh God,
Dog Gang. It's pretty funny to me still.
Well, it'd be really pretty funny, Nave, if we actually talked about our game of the week. But before that, let's take a little break. Music plays. Boo, 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 boo. So, do you need a bathroom break or anything?
I'm good if you guys are.
No, I need to go get a bottle for the baby. So I'll be right back.
Okay.
This is where we sit around and just banter for a little bit.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm actually surprised you'd be doing bantering during this section of your, hanging out here by yourself. But sure.
Oh yeah. If it's just me, I think I'll usually just start reading something. Read it out loud, or I'll just screw with someone. But usually Philip, if it's obnoxious enough, edits it out.
Yeah. I mean, this is the part where this is like where the true spice comes in for the podcast, where people, are just listening to this, us just bantered about whatever we feel like talking about at this point.
So what's going on? Do you have Persona figurines back there in their shelf back there?
I have a whole bunch of figurines back here.
Oh, you like pulled the curtain back. You were sitting in front of a lot of them.
It's one of those things where I live in a tiny apartment, so I can only put the chair so many places. But no, I've got my figure shelf behind me with a bunch of, game and anime characters and stuff like that. And then of course I've got a bunch of collector's edition stuff on top of the shelf. And then of course I got retro games on that shelf over there, as well as my manga on the bottom shelf. And then I've got another shelf on that other wall over there that's just, PS2 and PS1 games. There's a lot of games in this room, and then there's literally like a shelf right next to me here that I'm kind of touching here. That's all my consoles. So I've got my PS3, Wii U, Super Nintendo, NES, Sega Saturn, PS5, Series X, N64, 360, Wii, Sega CD, and Sega Genesis, and then as well as a 32X. I might add.
Which one of those retro consoles is like your most prized possession? Which one are you most proud of?
I don't know. I think the modded Sega Saturn is a good one, because the modded Sega Saturn, first of all, Sega Saturn games are very expensive. So one of the best ways to alleviate that is to remove the disc drive and actually mod it with like a flat like a SD card reader to play games that way. So like I'm really happy with what I was able to do with that console, and plus I just love the Saturn. I think it's like an underrated console, but also I really like the GameCube as well a lot. So that's
I love the GameCube so much. I was such a big Nintendo boy. Yeah, the handle. It was the first portable.
Yeah. Just even more portable than the Game Gear that I had as a child that took 8 AA batteries to last for 45 minutes.
Have you ever put together like a Gundam before? Because this was actually not. It was not simple. I bought a small one because it's not good.
Well, no, like there's like high grade, like perfect grade,
and grade, and depending on the grade, that also indicates the difficulty of putting it together.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I don't know what this is. I bought this one because it was pretty cheap. It's Jim, my boy Jim from Gundam Evolution. Is that the game? It's my favorite character in that.
Yeah, but Jim was back in like Gundam 3.
Yeah.
I got a small one because I was like, okay, this will be cheaper, probably easier as well. But the small one is way harder than I expected it to be, because the pieces are so small. Multiple times I would cut, because you have to cut it out of plastic little things and like a sheet, and then you put it together like that. A lot of times I would cut one and it would just go like into the ether, and I'd have to find it before my dog ate it. So I'm pretty sure he came with mini hands, but I'm pretty sure I lost one of them immediately like that. But luckily it wasn't one that was important.
Yeah. Well, the benefits of the smaller models is that people can't see any fuck ups you get on it.
Oh, it does look a little fucked up too. I messed up the entire neck. I made it too high up, and so now he has a big old like giraffe neck. It looks like
he's a tall geese. He's got a tall goose neck.
Yeah. So what I do is I just point his head down a little bit, so his chin kind of covers it up a little bit.
Yeah. So it sounds like you got a high grade one by the sounds of it, but because it doesn't sound like you had to put together like an exoskeleton that goes underneath the model itself.
No, it's just limbs, right? Limbs in the torso.
Yeah, there's pieces on the inside, but mostly they're joints. Like it's like the inside of it was a bunch of I wouldn't call it an exoskeleton. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think it's probably a high grade one, which is like a good place to start. But I'm going to tell you right now, as someone who's built like the larger high grade ones, that doesn't matter. That's still what you described, the story you described, still happens anyways with the high grade stuff too. Because some of the larger Gundam models still have small parts from them, and you will still run into the same problem with the small parts.
Well, you figure the bigger ones would be more expensive. They have higher quality parts, right? Easier to handle.
No, they're literally the same. The same quality, because like the grade determines more than anything the quality of the parts that come along with it. But obviously, again, the bigger figures, you're right. You have like a lot more bigger pieces. Like one of the ones that I had, and the reason I don't actually have Gundam models anymore is because I've had to move around a lot, and they do not survive moves. I'm going to tell you that right now. If you move a lot, they don't survive moves or don't do too well in moves. It's just, even if you bubble wrap them and put them in a nice box, it doesn't matter. Something will get broken off eventually, and that'll be that. But
yeah, my friends messed with as soon as they saw my Gundam, they started messing with it and immediately ripped one of his arms off. No! And I was just like, oh my God. And the piece, of course, the joint fell into and I'm like, just give it to me. don't touch it, please.
No, they're so fragile. Like I had a big Freedom Gundam from Gundam Seed. And it basically, like, every time I moved with that model, like a different piece would break off it, to the point where it was like, by the fourth move, I was like, all right, I'm ready to trash this thing, because it's barely holding together at this point. So
it was battle hardened.
Yeah.
No, that's like it was softened.
No. So that's why I collect more of the, like, the standard figures as opposed to models now. Just because they survive moves a lot easier than models do. I think they're a little better put together. So they're able to survive moves better. But
I'm really jealous of that Master Chief helmet.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's from the Halo 3 Collector's Edition. So
yeah.
I can't actually wear that helmet because there's because they didn't design it that way.
Me and Phillip,
like the Modern Warfare goggles.
Yeah, I had those too. But they're in a box at my mom's place right now, currently. But
wait, do they work?
Yeah. Oh, they totally work. They were legit night vision goggles that they came with the Modern Warfare 2 Collector's Edition.
Did you see that? Do you guys remember like the Saints Row 3 or Saints Row 4 Super Special Edition where you pay $1 million?
The $1 million Collector's Edition?
What? That's a real thing?
Like
that's a real thing. One of the perks
was they would send you to space or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it was for Saints Row 4. And yeah, it was $1 million prize. And yeah, one of the perks of that paying the $1 million was going to space.
I'm pretty sure one of the perks was also like plastic surgery.
Yeah, it was. It was just a giant list like this of like all kinds of crazy crap like that.
Well, and we're back.
Speaking of Gundams, our game of the week, Devil and Me, Dark Pictures Anthology, developed by Supermassive and published by Bandai Namco, the same guys that do Gundams. I didn't put the release date in. Yeah, but I assume it was October of this year, 2022. Or
actually, it was November this year.
November? Okay.
Yeah.
Usually it's an October or Halloween type thing. But for the store description, a group of documentary filmmakers receive a mysterious call inviting them to a modern-day replica of the serial killer H.H. Holmes' murder castle. It's an opportunity that's too good to pass up and can be just the thing they're looking for to win some much-needed public interest. The hotel is in the perfect set for the new episode, but things aren't quite as they seem. The crew discover that they're being watched and even manipulated, and suddenly there's much more at stake than just getting their ratings. From the Steam store, only $39.99.
Very important info.
Yeah. So, we like to talk about our history or our preconceptions of the game. Ryan, what's your history with maybe the Dark Anthology series, or like how you felt about this game? Like, was this the first one you picked up?
So I've actually played first of all, Supermassive as a developer who develops the Dark Pictures Anthology games. Like I've played all their games going back to Until Dawn, which was a PlayStation 4 exclusive game back in 2015. And then, of course, they signed on immediately after that to do the Dark Pictures Anthology games. I even played like some of their other weird games as well, like Hidden Agenda, which was this like more budget, PlayStation like PSN title that was kind of like this detective game. They also had like a VR game called The Patient as well, which was like an Until Dawn spinoff. But I like their games a lot. But I always find that some of the quality is hit or miss with some of the Dark Pictures anthology games specifically.
Feels a little double A.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like but at the same time, I feel like they've gotten better. The Dark Pictures anthology games have gotten better as they've gone along. Like Man of Medan, I felt like was a bit of a miss for me, but at the same time, going back and replaying it again, I've actually found that I enjoy that game much more than I did when I played it for the first time. Back in, I think it was 2017, it came out. And then Little Hope, the game after that, which was actually, believe it or not, a game that Supermassive pitched to Konami as a Silent Hill game, and not because Supermassive wanted to develop a Silent Hill game, and that's what that game was originally supposed to be.
It's kind of what it looks like with the fog and the bus and everything.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it definitely feels like Silent Hill. So after it got turned down, they ended up just turning that idea into a Dark Pictures anthology game. And that one I didn't like as much because you just kind of walk in a straight line. But House of Ashes, the game that came out the year before The Devil and Me, which I think came out in 2020, I really liked a lot. I really dug House of Ashes. I think it was a fantastic game. And it was definitely it felt to me like a return to form for Supermassive in a lot of ways. And then, of course, The Quarry, which came out earlier last year, I also really dug. So I was actually pretty excited about The Devil and Me and the prospect, because I thought like the serial killer angle inside like a spooky, murder house seemed like a great idea for a video game.
That's an easy dunk.
Yeah, so I was actually pretty excited about this one going into it, and I won't speak to audit meeting my expectations. So I want to hear from you guys first.
All right.
Did you play on shared story, or did you play in movie night, or did you play by yourself whenever you first experienced this?
I played this by myself. I don't know anyone else who plays these games but me. So
I'm kind of in that boat too with a lot of things.
So me and Nave, we played it together, and we played it in the shared story mode instead of the movie night mode, which we'll get into more detail about the differences. But my only history with the series is from Man of Medan, when we had an old race to Canis from Who Would Win on there. This is an episode we did way back, I think like in the first year of the pod. It's been so long. But that one was a lot of fun when we played through it. But what really kind of hooked me with this one is I had seen like a streamer play through the the Little Hope one. Mm-hmm. And I saw like how whenever you play online, like a shared story, you don't get to see everything the other player is doing. And so I was really interested to see how that would play out. Like, does that just like facilitate, I don't know, more playthroughs of the game? Because you're like, okay, I want to see the other side of the house now, or I want to see how it would play out differently if I was this character instead of them. But I think we're going to get into that. Nave, history of preconceptions?
I'm right there with Ryan, where I really enjoy Supermassive stuff. Especially Until Dawn. Until Dawn was a really fun experience, and I remember the first time I played Until Dawn, we kind of did because that game I think is completely single player, but we kind of did the movie night thing where I had a couple friends over the first time I played it, and we just passed the controller around. These Dark Pictures anthologies are a lot better for that because these games are a lot shorter than Until Dawn, I think. So these games you can actually kind of sit down, and it's like if you like watch two movies back to back, that's about usually the length of these games. And so my first experiences with the Dark Pictures though was playing movie night with the first three games, and I did not beat House of Ashes because we've restarted it like 3 times with different groups of people, but we always get about like a little over 2/3 of the way through, and then someone passes out because they're too drunk or something. And so these are amazing games to sit around with people and do the movie nights. And this game right here will be the first game I actually did the shared story with online play. So it'll be an interesting way to, I guess I have like a different perspective now on why some people kind of sleep on this series.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of interesting quirks you get when you're playing online.
There's some weird jank. Just hours played. Me and Dave both have 4 hours listed. That's one playthrough of the game with us kind of diddle-dallying around looking for collectibles. So if you were really trying to speed run this game, I don't know why you would. It's like a cinematic experience, but it would probably take you less than 3 hours or so, somewhere around that. Which, at the price point of $40, you really need to be doing some multiple playthroughs. I don't know if you're trying to get like more out of your value. It seems almost a little high for how short the game is.
Well, Philip, weren't you talking about how only if you want to play online you can download the trial? If somebody owns it, they can invite you to your game.
True. I'm so glad you named that, because that completely invalidates my point. Because if you're doing the shared story, it does the It Takes Two philosophy, or Operation Tango, where you can download the trial version of it if someone else owns the actual license for the game or the game itself, and they can play it. So it's almost like you're getting the whole game for, I don't know, $20 if each of you pitched in $20.
Yeah, which is something that we learned afterwards, because Philip got this from the library, and as soon as he was like, hey, download Devil in Me, because he assumed I already owned it, because I like buying these, and I didn't, so I bought it right away, and Phil was like, you fool!
you wasted money.
Oh, well.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if y'all are really big PC players, but it's something, this is something that actually Blizzard used to do back in the day with the original StarCraft, back in 1997, where if one of your friends owned the original StarCraft and came over to your house with their CD copy and installed it on your computer, they can install what's referred to as a spawn version of the game. And basically what that would allow you to do is, as long as you played online on Battle.net with your friend that owned the copy of the game, you can play as much StarCraft as you want with your friend, just playing together for free, essentially. So that's what this story totally reminds me of, because like most developers don't do this kind of thing nowadays. So it's just funny to hear you guys talk about that, because that's something we definitely did when I was in high school, where I had 8 friends and we had like this group that we would just, at lunchtime we would sit around the cafeteria table talking about all of our StarCraft games every night. And it was because we had one person who owned StarCraft, and then they had given like 7 spawn copies to the rest of us.
That's incredible.
Essentially. And we all kind of pitched in like $5 to basically pay for the copy of StarCraft, which is cool.
All right, so just top of the docket or whatever. This is based on apparently a real live person, old Triple H Murder Castle Hotel, which this game has a documentary installed in it, or a part of it that you can watch if you want to get the actual history. I didn't watch it, and you said you watched about half of it, and it is long.
We actually watched it all. I didn't realize I'd watched the whole thing, but yeah, it's pretty long and extensive. It's a cool tale. If you want to learn more about H.H. Holmes, there's a very funny comedy podcast called Last Podcast on the Left, and that's where I learned about it. So whenever we first started playing, and Melissa was like, oh my God, it's H.H. Holmes, oh my God, and she started fangirling out. You know how girls are with serial killers. But I realized I knew, because of Last Podcast on the Left, I was familiar with this story. And so it was so much that I was kind of like, I wonder if he's gonna use the gas. I wondered this or that. Whenever you do the prologue, that's like the tutorial, which those guys infamously usually die in the beginning of the game.
Characters.
So don't get attached to prologue characters.
The prologue was pretty funny. Which you're newlyweds, and you go into the hotel and you meet the proprietor of the hotel, and he's like, oh, hello, what's your name? He's like, oh, I'm Mr. H.H. Holmes.
Yes, he does do that.
On him. And I'm like, who's this guy? And then that's when you and Melissa are like, oh, it's that guy. It's the murder hotel guy. And I'm like, what? I don't know who that is.
The funny thing is because when you first, like right at the beginning, it does like a sweeping camera, and as it goes behind the counter, like behind the door of the counter, there's a skeleton there, and it's like a spooky skeleton behind the counter, and I'm like, why is that?
like that's saying this is a very Scooby-Doo haunted mansion type situation with lots of trapdoors and skeletons.
Oh my God, dude, the trapdoors are the best. We're like fucking all over the place right now, but as you can tell, we love this goofy shit. We love it so much.
All right, so just knock out the prologue. You're newlyweds. I was the husband that was super negative on everything. This place sucked. Everything sucks. I went over and I noticed that there's a little store where you could buy something. I had a choice of buying a necklace for my new wife or getting a sweet deal on a watch. So I got the watch. Which Ryan, what was this like playing solo? Like, I feel like this had to be like, did you control both characters, or like how did it play out?
Yeah, you basically go back and forth at certain parts of the story, and in fact, when you beat the game, you unlock what's referred to as the curator's cut. And what that does is it allows you to play as like the other people that you didn't play as.
Okay, that's interesting.
When you play solo. But they also, when they do the curator's cut, they also add additional kills and different scenes that aren't actually present in the normal version of the game.
Oh, wow.
So it's actually like a good way to replay the game if you are looking for more replay value from this one and want to, go for another thing, but then not have it be the exact same experience. But yeah, you start off as the husband, just like you were describing.
Did you buy the watch?
I actually bought the necklace for.
Oh, come on! I thought you were going to do the evil choice.
I'm such a nice person. I would never nuke Megaton ever. I never have talked about that on a podcast.
This has come up like 100 times. I know. In fact, I think I joined a Halo game with someone who was playing from Carpool Gaming. They were hosting. You guys were hosting something, and it came up like 4 different times. We just kept talking about nuking fucking Megaton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, of course everyone did it. And then people are like staunchly against it, and judgment calls were made. And it's like, it's so funny. It's such a goofy thing. That
I am on the wrong side of history when it comes to the carpool gaming community, because most of the carpool gaming community saves Megaton, but I destroy it every single time.
Dude, the penthouse is swanky, man.
Yeah, you can see everything from there.
Exactly.
Plus, in the little courtyard going up to the penthouse, I would always drop all the round objects I could into the well or the fountain in the front until the game would eventually glitch out and I would freeze every time I walked out of the penthouse.
Dude, I fucking love Bethesda so much. Bless their souls.
Because once they go in there, they just keep moving. They're just constantly rolling around in the well.
It's like a ball pit.
Yeah, this isn't about Fallout New Vegas. Or that was 3, actually, right?
Yeah, it was Fallout 3.
It's been a while. But, okay, so... surprise, we go upstairs. I tell you that I didn't buy you any gifts and got a sweet new watch, and you're very disappointed in me. And then we have a pillow fight.
You have a choice to be like, oh, it's fine, and I was like, oh no, and like fainted on the mirror. I was so upset.
But I got a good deal on it. Which, this is kind of interesting because at this point we stick with these characters, but in our shared story we end up swapping characters a lot. Whereas if you're playing in the movie night mode, you get assigned a character and you were that character throughout the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we could go into that real quick. So the movie night mode is for playing locally, and it's different from the shared story where only one person is ever playing at a time, which is why I was talking about, like, you can get some popcorn, you can get some wine or whiskey, whatever floats your boat, and just have like a it's called movie night for a reason, and it's really cool because you get to sit there and judge everything that one person does
and talk crap, be like, why would you do that, you're gonna get killed.
Where on the other side you don't. I have no idea what Philip's doing most of the time in the games.
I mean, it's also a good game to play with like your significant other on a date night or something like that too. If they're into horror movies or horror games as well, like, me and my girlfriend have sat on the couch and played those games before, and it's always fun for us to like, come up with different decisions for each other and stuff like that. So like movie night mode, I didn't do that for this game, but I have done that before, and that's always a lot of fun as well. Just even if only one person's playing at a time, even be able to come up with talk about the choices together, and doing it that way is pretty cool. And also you can also turn the timer off for the choices as well in movie night mode. So it's actually like a good live streaming way to do it as well if you've got some friends there over as well.
All right. So we have our pillow fight. Nave decided he was going to go take a bath down the hall while I was going to, I don't know, go get some ice or something. I can't remember. But anyways, I go in the hall and I realized that they moved the walls, so the hallway doesn't go the same way, and all the doors are fake. And I'm like, oh no, I got to get back to my wife because I hear screaming because something was going on in the bathroom, but I couldn't see from my point of view or on my playthrough. I just heard screaming that I need to get back there. So Dave, what was happening in the bathroom?
Oh, he came in there and choke slammed me, Mortal Kombat style.
Really?
He murdered me. No, he just chokes you to death in the bathtub. He does the thing too where my character is like, I could be scared or I can just be fine, and I was like, I'll be fine, and she just closes her eyes. She's like, oh honey, and she just closes her eyes, and then whenever she opens her eyes, the dude's like up above her, like staring into her eyeballs, and so it's just so silly.
And to throw some context out there, there's actually 2 different deaths that can happen there, because you can die the way you described by not interacting, or if you, of course, are like, who's there, and react to the person. You'll have like a bit of a chase sequence before he actually slits your throat, and then the husband's on the other side of the door, and you kind of both die at the same time. Oh, spoilers, of course, coming up.
Okay. The thing with spoilers for this game, though, there's so many variations that you probably will never get the same story that we got that we're going to discuss. It's like,
I only meant spoilers for what I know that you're about to talk about.
Okay.
With the husband.
But the husband, which I thought was kind of like, this felt in character. Like, it was crazy how fast we got into character in this game. Like, we were instantly like locked. Even with the later characters, the film crew, it took like 5 minutes and we were like, I know this character. Like, the writing was so well done that we instantly had personalities for like all the main people. We knew how we wanted them to react. We even came to like a consensus of like, this character is this character and this is how I think they would act. At least that's how we played it. I don't think we ever chose intentionally dumb decisions. This wasn't As Dusk Falls or whatever, where we were like, pick the stupid option so the child takes the painkillers, that type of stuff. But
which we did. Those are my favorite choice that I made. I override in As Dusk Falls. You could override choices, and I made him take the painkillers.
Of course, you did. That sounds about right.
The evil choice, which didn't matter. And then we told him to hide behind the door. So the guy opens up the door and looks to the left and sees him instantly.
Which happens in this game where we hid behind the door and we called it the As Dusk Falls moment where and I thought the killer was going to look to the right and see us, but he just walked right past us. Anyway.
Okay. Anyways. Like, part of the role playing is like, I'm the husband. I'm like, okay, I need to get back to the wife. I run back down the hallway. All the doors look the same. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember how to get back to the room. He's like, I don't know my room number. And so then I'm like checking every door and you're swinging doors open and they're all bricked up behind it. And you're like, everything's fake. And it gets to a point where like you walk in there and you see the murder and he's like approaches you and I'm like, oh no. And it's like, you can attack or run. And I'm like, I'm going to attack. And I like starts a quick time event where you're like charging up to attack him. And I'm like, and we did this in the pillow fight of lot where you charge up and attack and then you just don't attack.
Yeah.
It's even like missing. He doesn't miss. He just nothing happens. And they just kind of look into each other's eyes for a second. Which we did do some stupid quick time events where like,
oh my God. Just failing things on purpose.
Yeah, like there's a door. It's like, okay, we need an army of 2. We're not strong enough to open this door. We got to do it together. We both go up and it's like, mash X. And we're like, I'm not mashing X. And I don't know if Nave's mashing X, but I'm not mashing X.
I am mashing X.
It's like, we charge up. We were like, go to open the door. And we fail and we go, oh. And the characters just kind of look at each other. And then they're like, I guess we try again. And I would do that. It's so annoying.
Like 4 times, and I'm just like, "Damn it, Philip! Just press the button." And he's just, but just not fucking doing it.
All right, so that pretty much covers the prologue. It doesn't work out for our guys. Both of them died. I think
he goes to do it like he opens a door and dies in like a little gas chamber thing. And this was whenever I was still like piecing it together. I was like, I think I know what this is. And I was explaining it to you. And as soon as I talked about the gas stuff, like there were pipes that led into these hotel rooms. The whole way that this works is it never comes up in the game really, but in the real life thing, there was like a second floor it's like a multiple story hotel, and the second floor was like a death, like a kill box.
The kill
like a whole bunch of that's where all the crazy stuff would happen. And then the top floor and the bottom floor actually were like hotels, kind of like how the Indian scam calling agencies are. You know what I mean? Where there's like one floor that's all scam callers and everyone else is like a legitimate like business. My wandering into the fucking weeds right now, that's real. That's real.
Just a bit.
Anyways, that's kind of how all of that stuff happened. And once we got out of the prologue, you get to meet the film crew. And the film crew's they're a little mean to each other. The team spirit is low.
Yeah, morale's pretty rough. They're down on their luck, kind of. Everyone has basically dreams that are unfulfilled. It's kind of sad, really. You know, you look at him and you're like, wow, it sucks to be a human, I guess. But
like most film crews are, anyways.
Is it? I don't know any film crews.
I mean, I work in that industry, so I mean, yeah, it's not always like that. Of course, I kid a little bit, but there is some of that for sure, and it actually felt like, as someone who's worked on films before, like I don't know, like small films, like it felt actually very real when it came to a lot of the stuff they were talking about, which is interesting for someone like me, because most people wouldn't catch a lot of that stuff, or thought they could be a little bit outrageous to it. But
good, they got some realistic touch.
Yeah.
So in this game, it's really it's about how the characters interact in the environment, and our environment is a murder hotel on a isolated island. So I figure we could roll through the characters before we kind of talk about the story bits. We have Charlie, which is the leader. He's the director, I think.
He's the director, yeah.
Okay. He's notable
resident British man.
Yeah. He carries a lighter, but he doesn't have any cigarettes to light. It's very sad.
What does it say about life?
You know, like, is this supposed to mean something? Charles, he has anger issues is his thing, but we kind of like played him as he was angry, but he always reeled it back in the end to get the team back together.
Yeah. We kind of felt for Charles. I kind of empathize with him because I too have anger issues and no cigarettes to light with my lighters.
Well, the other funny part is like the only person that was nice to him was Mark, which is like the only other guy. So they were like best buds, like boy buds together, while everyone else was just mean.
But there's this one part, because you're always switching between characters. So I think both players get to play as each of the 5 characters at some point. But there was a part where you were playing Mark and I was Charlie, and I was eavesdropping, and you're like, "Oh, I think he's being mean," and Charlie's just like, like he's so hurt. Like it's just like the most like non-offensive kind of thing. But it's the fact that you didn't have my back, Philip.
Well, no, he was talking to his ex-wife or whatever, or his ex-girlfriend. Like he was trying to make it work.
Speaking of ex-girlfriend, is that Kate, or is that there's a couple people?
That's
left.
Kate, but we can talk about Mark real quick. Mark's the cameraman. He carries a camera that zooms in too far, so the camera's useless and can't take it. This is going to be a running theme with the characters all having items that are useless.
Yeah.
Dude, I loved the camera though.
It was definitely an interesting touch, although I was not a fan of his flashlight, in quotation.
Oh, he had a flashlight?
Well,
yeah, no.
Again, in quotations, like it had like the camera flash that you would just periodically turn, like flash.
I didn't even know that.
The environment.
I feel like you didn't need the camera for most of the point. Well, I didn't play Mark a lot either. I usually played Charlie or Kate.
Yeah. In the dark environments, again, all the other characters for the most part had a flashlight or a lighter in Charlie's case, but Mark, he didn't have any of those things. He just had a camera flash that you just like periodically flash to see how to get around this hotel. So it was kind of annoying having to use it all the time.
To be completely honest, I actually really loved the camera flash, and it reminded me of a really old horror game. I think it's a game now, but it used to be a mod for Half-Life called Cry of Fear. And at the beginning of that game, you're walking around a dark environment using your camera flash, so and it's really awesome. Like the idea of it, and I've always had this kind of weird feeling with like cameras. You know what I mean? Like something scary about cameras. Like out of all of the Japanese horror games, I used to be scared the most of Fatal Frame, just because of the camera thing, you know. But I don't know. But I really liked the camera, but whenever you use the camera, you can you're free to just take pictures and whatever. And I was really hoping it would do a Final Fantasy 13 or 15 where you would have all of these camera pictures, whatever fucking kind of pictures do you have? But you'd have all these pictures that you take, and I was taking like scenic pictures, you know, at the beginning, like of the lighthouse and stuff, and none of it ever came up again. So it's kind of depressing.
Yeah, because like there's achievements for getting pictures of like the different crewmates, but beyond that, there's no reason to take pictures except for the 1 or 2 times you have to take them for the story purpose.
All right, so our next character is Kate. That's Mark's ex. She's the lead actor or the host of the show, and she actually carries one of the few useful items, a focusing crystal that she gets bullied about by her ex Mark.
Yes,
but it actually works to calm her when she's having a panic attack.
Very stressed out crew that we have, but this is one of the I never actually got to use the calming crystal, but I think you hit someone with it at one point, didn't you?
Yeah, that's it. Like if you make sure you bring it all the way into the game, like, I guess spoilers for our playthrough, Kate used it to save Mark's life by stabbing the killer in the back with her energy amethyst that she's been carrying this whole time.
It just poured the energy into them, I guess, to knock them off, I guess. But
which I don't know about you guys, but I'm a non-believer in crystal energy. Like, I don't think there's anything there. I have a salt
you're
lamp.
on the wrong side of history, then, Philip.
I got a salt lamp, so it's got to be like, it's like whenever you go to church on Christmas, you got to get points for something, right?
What? What does that have to do with anything?
I'm so confused right now.
It's all spiritual, I think.
This is just par for the course for over here at Gaming Together. We're always confusing each other.
Clearly.
All right, so next duo is Jamie and Aaron. Jamie's the lighting technician, I guess, and she's the only one that knows how to use fuse boxes, even though the fuse boxes are like a kindergarten level puzzle.
Yeah, you just flip things for a little bit. You just flip
the switches. It's like, let me handle this. And then she just goes over and flips the switch. And I'm like, thanks for handling that, Nave. Which I didn't know it was that simple until I got to play as Jamie later on, and I did it. And I'm like, oh, so that's what you were doing over there, staring at the wall for 30 seconds while I'm just standing there as, I don't know, Kate's doing nothing. Aaron,
they're not really like, Supermassive isn't really known for like complicated puzzles or anything like that. So
yeah,
and I like the fact too that they didn't make the puzzles too complicated, because I think if they made them overly complicated or take a long time, it just would have kind of ruined the flow for the co-op modes and stuff like that. So I'm glad
this was no late game BioShock hacking water minigame.
Oh my, I love the BioShock hacking minigame though. It is good though. Like Ryan makes a good point, and it's like a lot of the time I played these games, these dark picture anthology games. Like over half of the people that were playing with me were actually not very like well versed in gaming. They weren't like, they didn't have the skills really built up, and so it's those are usually the ones that died in the game from one random quick time event too. But yeah, but it's good to have these easily solvable puzzles so that you can maintain the flow. Yeah.
All right, then we have Erin, who's the sound operator. She carries a handheld mic that serves no function besides making loud noises whenever you equip it. And she also carries an inhaler that didn't help her when she was breathing.
It's this inhaler that we thought was going to... So the inhaler, the item itself, you can see your items in the D-pad in the bottom left corner. And the inhaler had like a number 5 or something like that. And so like the first uses, time... right? She was having an asthma attack. I refused to use the inhaler because I was like, we're going to need this inhaler later on. And I don't think it ever came up again. Yep.
100%. Like I saw that too. And I was like, oh, okay. I feel like you're going to need to like conserve this a little bit and not use the inhaler charges.
Like assume you're going to be chased by the killer, right? And it's going to be like the heartbeat minigame. And if she's having an attack, she's not going to be able to control her heartbeat and she's going to die.
Yeah. But it never came up again.
It never came up.
But I like the idea too that it kind of tricked you in that way. And
a lot of red herrings, I guess.
Spoilers for a different game, that being Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. I love the way that game kind of plays with this a similar idea where they tell you at the beginning of the game if you die too many times, there will be permadeath and you have to start the game over again. But that's actually not true.
Really? I was so worried about that the whole time.
Yeah, it's showing the corruption on like Senua's arm, and it's like the more you die, the more corruption goes up the arm, and eventually you'll die from it. But that's not actually how it tells you that, but it tricks you on purpose.
I fell for it then. They got me, those filthy game developers.
Yeah, so it's a very similar situation to this, where it's like you thought you needed to conserve those. So I also didn't use the inhaler the first time as well, assuming that I would need it later, and then it never came up again.
It's that gamer brain. We got that gamer juice going on.
Yeah,
like it's also the thing where they whenever you get out of a cutscene and the game points you in a direction, you always turn around to make sure there's nothing like no goodies behind you. Yeah, so that you got to check behind the corner.
All right, so then our next character is Dumont, which is our host, which is this dude, but it turns out this dude is just, for some reason, he has his kid there, and they're leading us out to the island. I don't think we ever uncovered why he was there. Maybe we didn't find the right lore bits or didn't read them good enough. But
it does explain it, but it sounds like you guys didn't either collect the right clues or get the specific ending that is required to know more.
Yeah,
because it actually explains it both in the ending where everyone lives and also the ending where everyone dies.
Okay, we did not do that.
And you didn't do either one of
everyone
these,
except
so.
for one person, and our final character, which is Connie the dog.
Yes.
Yes, the dog is the best guy, best boy.
Yeah,
or girl.
You can save the dog too if you want.
We saved the dog.
Oh yeah, I saved the dog. Yep. So the dog technically survived as well.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we can hit the story now that we've kind of covered most of the characters. There's also the killer, which is an H.H. Holmes copycat, or maybe he has the devil in him and he needs to be covered in concrete so he doesn't do it again or something.
Get all up.
What's the big quote at the beginning? And I'm like, man, I should probably write that down to put in the podcast.
Oh yeah, he says. I think it's something he actually said, but I don't remember. Like word that he's got the devil in him or whatever, something like that. But so we had a couple of ideas, and since we never found out, I had an idea where the guy is not actually a human; it's like an android, but or like a automaton, because there's a lot of like automaton imagery and stuff like that in this game. And there's a specific moment that happened to us where we trapped him in a hallway, and then he immediately appeared again. So I was like thinking more like the what is it, the helping men or whatever from Alien Isolation. We figured out what the hell are they? They're not called synth. They're called something else. Working Joes. Yeah,
Worker Joes.
The Worker Joes. Oh my god.
So you're saying they're just like clockwork people or something?
Yeah, maybe.
There's a lot of automation in the fortress, or not the fortress, not the museum, the hotel, where you see like moving walls and some pretty advanced technology to be just like crammed into this place.
So Ryan probably knows, but we're just sitting here spitballing. We don't really, me and Philip personally don't know. So
yeah.
Ryan, you got any more for the characters?
Yeah, I mean, actually, like when I was playing, I thought something similar where there was actually a different killer, and then that was building the automatons, including the H.H. Holmes, copycat killer.
Yeah.
And that, so I think we were along the same lines where I thought there might have been multiple killers.
Yeah,
but no.
We thought there was multiple for sure, because there was like some impossibilities of how fast he could move.
But no, it's just very much a Friday the 13th kind of situation. Where it's just a normal dude who just likes to murder people.
We're never going to talk about that at the end. Which, did you get everyone to survive in your playthrough?
So my first playthrough, everyone died. I always like putting that playthrough first in these games.
That's on purpose?
On purpose.
Okay.
So that's what I did this time around. And then I did the playthrough where everyone lives, and then I kind of, go in between that. Just because I always... I don't know. I think it's fun to see the possibilities, but I also I don't kill all the characters right away. Like I always try and see like how far I can get to the end of wherever the story goes before murdering everyone. Again, since y'all didn't play it, oh my God, the ending where everyone dies this time around is amazing. Like they really went there with that ending in particular in a way that they've never done in any of these games before. Because a lot of times it's just like, well, okay, all the characters are dead now, and the killer got away. And it's a sad story. It goes back to the curator. He's like, well, I guess you murdered everyone, and then you go about your day. But no, this time around, there's like this whole like sequence that happens for like 20 minutes after everyone's dead, and oh my God, it fills in a lot of gaps in the story. But then also it just presents a lot of new and interesting ideas. So I really liked the way that they handled that ending this time around. And I actually think it was honestly a better ending than the ending where everyone lived, because the ending where everyone lived, it's your typical happy ending kind of thing. Whereas the one where everyone died was just was really interesting and cool. So I like what they did with that this time.
I might need to look this up on YouTube. I mean, I guess I could just play it myself, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know why I said that.
The game.
Yeah. Because likewise, since you didn't see that, did the game ever explain to you why they were bringing people to the island, or how they were getting people to bring people to the island? Because the way that they explain that is just really, really cool.
No, we never figured that out.
Oh,
we almost got at the ending where everyone died because only one guy lived. So I mean, I'm kind of, and we didn't even, I don't think there's an achievement for just beating the game. There's only achievement for beating the game with everyone living, then with everyone dying. And then there's an achievement for beating the game with the dog surviving, which is what we got.
Which is the goodest ending, maybe.
Also, funny enough, in the ending where everyone died in my playthrough, the dog still lived. Even the curator is at the end is like, you managed to kill everyone except for the dog who managed to get away. He like specifically point out the fact that I helped the dog escape the island. But also, in order to get the ending that I'm referring to, because I'm looking through y'all's notes, and I noticed that I think one of the people dies on the boat at the end.
I can't wait to get to that.
And that's the reason why y'all didn't see what I saw, because I had two characters that were still living before you get to the boat at the end. But because of my choices, they ended up being captured by the killer. And then that's what brought on the ending where everyone died. And it even does a fake out thing where I thought they actually ended up living, but they end up actually not living in the end, which is just
okay.
So.
All right, so I just put in some random story elements. Like, we're not going to go beat by beat. Just some things that stuck out to me. Out in the beginning, Nave was playing as Charlie or whatever, and this is whenever he caught us eavesdropping on him. Where basically I'm having a telenovela with my exes talking to each other upstairs about how we were giving up on our dreams and now we're stuck with this dirtbag Charlie and he's such a jerk, and how maybe we should just get back together, but we have limits. We need to move on. Meanwhile, Nave is spending 45 minutes trying to smoke, where he's just walking out trying to find cigarettes. And I'm like, because the whole point was like we were going to sneak out and basically break the rules and try to record some stuff, like without Charlie being a dick director. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because like at this point, Nave had nothing to do with the story at this point. He was just wasting time trying to find cigarettes while I was actually going through the plot.
It's that brings up one thing that I'll probably forget about if I don't talk about it right now, and that is like while we are both like doing simultaneous stuff, like getting like this knowledge and stuff, and you can communicate in your party or do whatever you want, but there are invisible lines that once you cross, it will just teleport your partner to whatever they're supposed to be doing, and that actually infuriated me because multiple times I'd be really interested, like walking around exploring the environment and looking at stuff, and then Philip would yeet me 3 buildings forward, and because I was taking my sweet ass time like looking at stuff and getting collectibles and like lore, and Philip would be doing a very simple like walk down a hallway thing, and there would be a real inconsistency with like the amount of stuff that one of us would be doing at any given time, which isn't like a huge drawback, but just be aware that that's probably going to happen to you if one of you or both of you are inquisitive.
Yeah. Next kind of story beat that I thought was quite silly was that we faked a leg injury so we could walk around and get some shots basically away from the group. And instantly I failed the QuickTime event. So we were hiding behind some bushes from the group, and they were like, hide here. And I'm like, oh, press A to hide. Instantly fails the check because it's like, you're not supposed to instantly press A. You're supposed to wait a second and press A or whatever with the beats. I'm like, crap. And so my character just stands up and just makes direct eye contact with the group. Amazing. It's like, God. Did you have any moments like that, Ryan, where it's just like failed QuickTime events making everything so goofy?
No, well, I should say intentional ones towards the end, because like the QuickTime events are actually pretty easy to do, I think. In this game. So for the most part, I was only failing them when I was intentionally failing them, and some of them were just like you're hiding behind the door, and then all of a sudden the heartbeat comes up, and I just don't press in. They're just like, oh, yeah, they just comes around the hall, just looks at them, and they just kind of look at each other, and he just murders them. So
there's a problem in this game where there is desync issues when you're playing online, especially with the heartbeat one where you're supposed to do it in time. And there's like maybe 5 or 6 times throughout the game that you do it, and usually it would just fail randomly for me. And it would say on my screen that Philip failed it, and Philip would say that I failed it.
Yeah.
And so, but I would be streaming, so I'm like, I'd be streaming and there'd be people watching. So I'm like, I could prove that it wasn't me. I was doing it. But there was one time specifically where it did work, and it happened to be where me and Philip were separated. And so I wonder if like the simultaneous ones are the ones that, are really impossible to do online or something like that.
Yeah. I imagine that not being an easy thing for sure, because it's already kind of frustrating even when you're playing by yourself, because it's still not, amazingly accurate. And I can only imagine that just is even more heightened by, the addition of latency on top of that. So yeah, I imagine that's definitely not an easy thing to do, especially if y'all have to coordinate a little bit on that too. It sounds like a bit of a mess, but and it's one of the reasons why I don't know if either of y'all played The Quarry, which came out early in 2022 as well from Supermassive as well.
It's on the list.
Okay, because the hiding mechanic in that game I liked a lot better, where it's like instead of doing the heartbeat sensor and having a QuickTime event, you have to hide and then hold down. I think it's the A button on Xbox until you see the danger pass, and then basically because you're able to see what your character can see during the danger moments, and as you see the threat walk by you, as an example, and as you see when you see that it's safe to finally move, you just let go of the A button and then go. But if you don't let go of it quick enough and you miss your window, you'll then get caught. So you kind of have to like pick your window and stuff like that. But that's I think that system accounts better for latency in what y'all were trying to do with the online stuff. I think it might have been better served in the Dark Pictures themes. And the only reason I don't think they brought that system into this one is just because they're all built on the same engine. So they're obviously not going to change a lot of these mechanics around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like game ruining, but it is immersion breaking, that kind of stuff with the online. And so I imagine if you're someone who froths at the mouth when glitches happen, then you might want to play this game in movie night mode. But if you're someone who likes to laugh at this kind of stuff, me and Philip had a hell of a time laughing at some of the silly things that would happen.
So silly, which it's so hard to make horror in a co-op environment. We've talked about this before in other games, but once you add another person to it, it just gets goofy. We talked about it in Dead Space 3. We've talked about it in I don't know what other horror games have we played. I don't even know, but it comes up
the Man of Medan.
Man of Medan, yeah, like it's just silly. But that's kind of like the beauty of it, is it's like the B horror movie type silly.
Yeah. It's the reason why you decide to pull out a copy of Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Just like, well, that's what I'm doing tonight.
Yeah. Which some of the silly story beats that also didn't seem to make much sense at the time, but I assume makes sense if you knew everything, was like, we go to dinner because we're supposed to meet Dumont at dinner because he told us be there at 8. And I'm like, that's awfully late for dinner. But whatever, we go down there and he already tried to leave the island with his kid or whatever. He ends up not making it. Very sad. But we get there and everyone's upset because there's no food at dinner. It's just a table with wine. And I'm like, oh no, we didn't get to eat even though we waited so long. I bet everybody's so hungry. And this is where we have like a come to Jesus moment with Charlie yelling at everyone and then basically getting everybody back on his side. So that worked out. But then we end up going on a big Scooby-Doo chase around where we're running through doors, we're running from the killer and stuff like that. And then we come back in the room and now there's mannequins that look just like us and they're having the same conversation. I don't know why this happened.
Spooky.
Like, is it spooky or is it just stupid they put it there? Because maybe it's spooky. I mean, I would be spooked too.
They hit the back. They hit the back of one of the mannequins, and an eyeball flies out too, like the Neversoft eyeball,
like a real eyeball,
Tony Hawk,
a real eyeball.
So you're telling me they're androids? They just need more parts.
I don't know if like maybe the mannequins are made like, I think it's plaster over like real people or something. Because whenever I was in a area in the later part of the game as Mark. I saw a guy that seemed to be alive still, and I ended up killing him, like electrocuting him to death, because he was screaming and the killer was walking around down there, and I was like, I've got to shut this guy up. And so I kill him, and he screams like, "Aah!" And I'm like, oh god, this is worse. This is way worse. Turns out nothing happens, but I mean, my logic was completely out of the window. I didn't know what it was like. Kill him or don't. I didn't know it was electrocute him.
I didn't see that. I didn't know that part because I was playing as stupid like Aaron with carrying around my sound gun, basically listening to screams in the distance, going, "Huh, sounds like there's something going on in the other room." My little sound gun at another wall,
which that's obviously like inspired from like what is it, Outlast?
Yeah,
with
probably.
The camera, the amplified sound, which is a pretty cool mechanic in that game. But I mean, this game is obviously something completely different. It's trying to go for something else, but. I really like that that whole scene. In fact, that's that one time that I succeeded in the heartbeat thing, and it was actually a good tense scene because I was underneath the table and the killer was right there next to me, like chopping a body up or something. I don't know what the hell he was doing, but and then Philip the whole time is talking to me, asking me questions. I'm like, shut up! I can't. I'm not gonna. This is gonna be a bad situation. It's bad sitch if I fuck this up.
Well, meanwhile, like I think while you were doing that basically survival point, I had a moment to inspect some mannequins that had like a syringe and they were on a chair or something like that. And I'm like, I'm going to save that for last. And by the time I circled the room and got all the lore piece and started to head back over there, you hit an invisible trigger that teleported me out of the room. Or no, it triggered another walkie-talkie moment where it was like, hide in the locker. And I'm like, I guess I'll hide in the locker.
Oh, that was a really cool scene. How did that happen with you, Ryan, whenever you played this? You played both endings solo, right?
Yeah, I only played solo the entire time. So yeah, you just play those sequences completely not at the same time at all. Like you play them, away from each other. So
that's interesting.
I'm also trying to remember back exactly because it's been a while since I played this. Because you have to remember it's been 2 months since I played this.
So yeah,
we don't blame you.
So like Aaron is searching through like a medical looking room, and she gets a call from Jamie on a walkie-talkie that's implanted in a mannequin, and she's like, hey, I got a message from the killer. You need to hide in a locker right now. And I chose that point to be really petty and be like, I saw your text messages. I know you called me.
Yeah. Of course
yeah, of course. Because like Erin's apparently really weak sauce and petty, and she doesn't even get paid for her job. She's just doing it for experience, which is really sad. And she's also getting crippling debt. Yeah. It's not a good situation for Erin.
Once again, just very real. It felt very real.
It's so that's more horrible than half the things that happen in this game.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, I remember where she definitely, I had her hide in the locker as well because I found out that the from one of the totems, I think, or not totems, the
pictures,
paintings, that if you don't hide in the locker, you actually do die there. So I made sure to use that.
We talked about quick time events, the breathing challenge. There's also these paintings spread around, the dark pictures or whatever. And if you watch them, you get to see a possible fate. I always like this because this lets you experience like the kills without having to make the bad decision. And it gives you a chance to think like, oh, we need to be on the lookout for something like this. It gives you, more of a reason to care, even though you're going to probably play the same way you were going to play before.
Yeah, because it's interesting too because it gives you like a look ahead and it gives you something to look out for. But usually it's all without context. So sometimes the person that dies, you don't even get to see who was dying. Sometimes you see a character that you're playing reacting to a death. So and sometimes I don't know if they ever do it in the series, but like. It might be possible that it's not even a character you control that dies, and they discover like a body or something, and so it really kind of keeps you.
But the real question is, did y'all find the picture of the death to avoid in the next game?
Oh, really?
What?
That's a thing?
That's a thing. So every in each Dark Pictures anthology game, there is one picture frame around in the environment that if you find it, it shows you a kill from the next game. And it tees up what the next game is going to be.
That's fantastic.
Because as you know, when you roll credits in this game, it also gives you the trailer to announce whatever the next game is going to be. So it was really cool. Like, of course, finding the kill. It's like, oh, I guess when I'm on a spacewalk, avoid doing this because the next game is going to be a sci-fi horror game.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's really cool. So whenever you replay these games, always be on the lookout for those because they're always like super interesting. And plus, like a lot of times, what happens too is because they make those before the game comes out. Sometimes they actually change some of the stuff about the scene itself or the way it looks. So if you play the games back to back, you might notice some differences between the picture frame there versus what you see in the final product, which is always interesting from a game development side.
For sure. Well. All right, so let's roll through, or what you got, Nave?
I was going to ask if you guys had like favorite characters. I know we flew past characters already, but I was just thinking about Mark being the best boy and all.
Yeah,
I wonder
Mark
if you guys had different opinions.
I don't know. I get really attached to Kate because I was playing her a lot, which I was going to say, like, the reason I played Kate so much is because we intentionally killed off all the other characters besides Kate every time we had a chance.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. For me, it was Charlie. Honestly, I love Charlie and it's like how he just wanted to smoke. That's all he wanted to do the entire time was just have a cigarette, and he just couldn't do it. But
Charlie was the first dead in our game.
Right. I want to talk about that too, but we'll talk. I think at the end of all this, we'll talk about how our characters died and all that. But I really liked Charlie as well, and I was visibly upset when he died. I was like frothing, but it wasn't really because he died or because the circumstances. It was. We'll talk about it.
Well, no, I think we can pretty much start getting into the deaths at this point. Like Charlie, he was just trying to smoke, and in our game, he goes into the incinerator. Yeah, he got smoked. Which I thought was so
the cigarette himself.
There's so many fitting jokes like that that just come back around. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. So, anyways, he gets caught in the incinerator, and meanwhile, I see I know it's an incinerator because I got teleported in there because Nave hit an invisible trigger, and it made me get teleported into the thing, and I'm like, this is an incinerator. I'm Charlie. Nave was like, hey Philip, I see a lever.
What Philip said. That whenever he went in there, he's like, this is an incinerator. I'm Charlie.
Yeah, pretty much. And then like Nave's like, I see a trigger that has a flame picture on it. Should I pull the lever? And I'm like, don't pull that lever. I'm in the incinerator. That's gonna Scooby-Doo blow my brains out, kill me, catch me on fire, whatever. Yeah. And then he's like, all right, I'm not going to pull it. And meanwhile, apparently, I think that was supposed to save him or something.
Yeah. Well,
that's exactly what you need to do to save him.
Because Philip was at some point, Philip was like, okay, I think you need to pull the lever. And I was like, okay, I'm pulling it now. And I pulled the lever all the way down, and he still died. Like
that's because you have to do it twice. You have to do it twice.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But because if you pull the lever the first time instead of going for the door, he'll pull the lever and nothing happens. Then once again, it gives you the choice to go for the door or do the lever once more, and then you have to do the lever twice.
Well, that's interesting because I didn't. That's the thing. So I pulled the lever, and we sat there for like 20 seconds as I stared at the pulled lever, and then the game pretended that I never pulled the lever because he was like, "I feel so guilty. I should have pulled the lever. Maybe I could have did something." And so I never even got the opportunity to go to a door or anything. So I think the game genuinely did bug out on us because, like, so you have when you pull it, it cuts to the door and everything, and then you do or do you have to actively do it a second time?
Yeah, because there's a quick time event that happens with the door. Because with the lever, what happens is it reveals a grate on the ground that you then are able to pull up on the grate to escape. That's how that works.
Oh yeah, we never got any of that.
Yeah,
but you have to do that in order to get to that. So, but yeah, if you go for the door at all during that sequence, when the door is an option, you just die.
Oh, that's sad. I really like Charlie.
Yeah, I was frothing at the mouth.
Because in my first playthrough where everyone died, I wasn't expecting Charlie to die in the incinerator because I thought the door was actually the way he was supposed to get out. So I went for the door twice, and then he like almost gets the door handle, but just doesn't quite get there, and he burns to death. And I was very sad because I like Charlie as well.
So our second death was Aaron, right?
Aaron. No, it was Aaron. Because of course she had an inhaler, but it didn't help her breathe because she went into a weird like bins chamber or something like that, pressurized chamber, and we had to depressurize or de-air one of the rooms. You okay? Baby had a cough, and so we had to depressurize one of the rooms to either save Kate or save Aaron, and we let Aaron die because she's in crippling debt.
Yeah, we gave her the escape. Yeah, and also it seemed like she was the one with asthma. It seemed fitting that she asphyxiated.
Yeah,
it's so sad.
Whereas Aaron died in my first playthrough. There was a section where she's alone in the dark, and Dumont comes up and offers her the inhaler, and I chose not to take the inhaler and to attack instead, and that actually just gets her killed. Because like she goes to try and stab Dumont in the arm, and he of course overpowers her and then just murders her right there.
Oof.
That's when you open the door and there was the mannequin in there, Philip? Is that the same part?
I think so. I think it's the same part. I don't really remember that part because mostly like Aaron was just by herself running around in the dark. I was Aaron at that point, and I'm like, oh no, I'm running around in the dark with my sound gun. This sucks. Because I didn't like playing as Aaron because Aaron kind of sucked.
So the death that happened after that happened like pretty immediately, and that was
Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie.
This is another weird moment where we had like a girl power moment where Jamie was teamed up with Kate and they were taking the fight back to Dumont. They took over the control room and they're trying to trap him. And this is where we started thinking that there was multiple killers because he just kind of couldn't be trapped and he would just kind of teleport around, it seemed.
Well, this is an interesting thing too because Jamie as a character was kind of fine, but this was kind of like a redemption arc for her because her and Kate didn't really get along for most of the time, and me and Philip, we role play when we play games like this, so we were accentuating that. Like anytime I was Jamie, I was actively like making fun of Kate at any chance I got. But I was Jamie in this situation, and I actually started turning it around. So there's a moment where you have a knife or something. I think it's a knife, and you have an option to give it to Kate. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. Oh, it's the screwdriver. So I was like, this makes sense because, Jamie's like, it's an olive branch. You know what I mean? Yeah. For Kate. This turns out to be fatal mistake number 1, because I think you need the screwdriver in Jamie's possession so that she doesn't die.
So actually what you need to do, because this can go either way, because if Jamie presses the button on the wall, then the wall will go towards Kate. And if Kate and whoever has the screwdriver actually ends up living. So if you give Kate the screwdriver, you can still have both live. You just have to make sure to press the button as Jamie to turn the wall.
Oh, really?
Okay, yeah. So the trap, dear listeners at home, is a giant, like this is like a Saw type room where there's like, let's play a game. There's a button in the center. You press it, you live. And the button is on Jamie's side. The wall is slowly moving like a Star Wars space compactor, a trash compactor. And Jamie in our game sacrificed herself and just got the big squish so that Kate could live.
Yeah, the reason being is that the button was facing Jamie's side, and so I assumed that Jamie would need to use that screwdriver to pop that thing open and somehow sabotage the machine.
Yeah,
so
she knows electronics, right?
We didn't even consider the idea that maybe Kate would be able to Scooby-Doo her way out of there.
Because she's not breaking out of it. It's glass, so she's able to break through it using the screwdriver.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, really? So we assumed, especially with the asphyxiation room, we assumed it was like one or the other. When it gets, how do you escape the asphyxiation room without killing someone?
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but there is a way to do it.
Okay.
Again, it's been a long time since I played it, so I'd have to go look it up again.
That's all right.
Our
very last death.
Was that our last death?
No. You were there, Philip.
Oh. Well, no, I mean, there's a little bit that happened. Like, we had a whole, like, Resident Evil 4 reference palooza. Where we're like, oh, look, it's the mansion where, like, the weird little zombie kid is. Oh, look, there's the hedge maze. Oh, look, there's the boat on the lake. As, like, we were just, like, doing all this stuff. Yeah, you have to go light the lighthouses, Mark. Meanwhile, I'm running from the killer with my crystal. And this is really unfortunate, is that we get the lighthouse lit, and the police show up, and the police instantly pulls his gun on Mark, which is a little problematic because Mark's black, as it turns out. And he's like, "What's going on?" Because it was weird. It was a little at the moment. The killer kills the cop. Doesn't matter. And Nave's like, "I'm going for the gun," and I'm like, "No, Nave, don't go for the gun." He's like, "I'm going for the gun."
It's super funny too because the cop is like facing away from his like police boat, and there's a fucking Molotov cocktail from Counter-Strike. It like just falls in the middle of the boat while he's not looking at it, and it's so funny.
All right, let's see, and then we eventually get to the killer's boat, I think. And he happened to have the keys, and we get it started. And this is where our big finale happened that made the game for us. This Nave said it was worth the entire game just to get this ending that we got. So Ryan, I think Nave wants you to watch that clip.
Oh, I just watched it. Yeah.
No, we gotta go back for the dog.
Are we gonna go back for that dog?
Oh no.
Seriously?
Yeah.
All right, Phil, if you want to describe what happens in the clip, we're going to have it on Instagram and stuff. I might repost it underneath the post for this episode and stuff, but this clip is great.
The last 5 minutes is very high octane of us. Basically, Mark is fighting the killer, and Kate is trying to hold on to the boat and not get washed away. And finally, she gets a moment to like get in there and bonk the killer with something else. And I think we end up stabbing him with the anchor, like Nautilus style from League of Legends, and throwing him off the boat where he gets chopped up into hamburger meat. And we like look at each other and we're like, we did it. But then instantly we look up ahead of us and there's a huge rock in the center of the lake, and we are going max speed on this boat. This boat has to be going like 90 miles an hour on the water. This is an insane speedboat. It is so fast. And then at this point I put my controller down. Yeah, it's a quick time event, and it's like, just press A. I have made like every quick time event up to this point, and I realize I'm not going to make it. And I don't remember what I say. I think if
you go, oh no. And then the boat fly. Mark jumps off. Kate's just standing there staring at the rock, and it flies into the rock, explodes. And I am like wheezing because it's such a funny, like, it's so anticlimactic the way that she died. But it also
it just died.
And it's also because now that it's clipped, I was able to look, and I thought Kate's body like ragdoll flew away. Like, you remember in It Takes Two where you crashed into the semi truck and I flew out of the back of the truck? Yeah, that's something that's imprinted in my brain. But it wasn't It Takes Two, A Way Out. Yeah. Anyway, I thought her body ragdolled and flew away, but actually what happens is she just continues through the rock. Which is almost funnier. Which is funny because it's like you wouldn't be able to tell. But yeah, so Mark, and the whole time also, so we had just killed the killer right before the quick time event. We're like, what happened to the dog? Because the killer throws the dog off the boat. I'm like, we need to go back for the dog. We're like having a conversation about that, and that's when the death happens. It's so sudden.
Yeah. Which there is a dog that we each have a moment of like, do we kill the dog because it's barking? And you didn't kill the dog. I also did not kill a dog. I'm like, I will die for this dog. And the dog ends up attacking the killer at one point, or like slowing him down so we can get away.
Yeah. Actually, that death actually with Kate got me in my playthrough where I was trying to save everyone to the point where I almost threw my controller. I was like,
really?
Okay, I guess I got to do that entire sequence again. Just
it is a long sequence with the cop and you surviving, like Kate's running, hiding in the lockers and stuff. It's a lot in the final chapter. This game nails the finale so good.
It's really good, yeah. And I think the finales in the other Dark Pictures anthology games are just as good too. Like the House of Ashes finale is also like really, really, really good as well. And I know neither of y'all have finished it, so if you do go back and play that one, I'm curious to know what you think about that finale because it's really good too.
Yeah, and I really liked that one because me and my group of friends, we really got into character and stuff. Like, since when you play in movie night mode, you are assigned a character, so every time that's the primary character. So I was playing the the head like guy, like I can't remember, he looks like Johnny Cage, and I was playing him like the most straight-laced military man, like no white phosphorus, no nothing. And it's like it's so fun playing these games. And what I was trying to get at was House of Ashes was probably my favorite one as far as the character like role play was concerned, because usually there's like a binary, right? Where you want your character to be nice, funny, whatever, or mean, angry all the time. And it's fun kind of like imprinting what your first impressions are onto these guys.
All right. And we got the sole survivor where we only had one person, and we had a little news blurb ending that covered it. And I think that covers our story. So Ryan, do you have any story bits or meat points you want to talk about?
No, I think we covered most of the major ones. I will say, and I talked about this because I ended up doing a review for Carpool as well for this game. One of the things that, kind of infuriated me playing by myself was getting lost in the hotel as it kind of shifted around and kind of going down the same corridors over and over again. I wasn't, a huge fan of that. But for the most part, I thought this game was pretty well done. I think it's definitely one of my favorite, Dark Pictures anthology games in the series. Like, the only one I like more is House of Ashes, and even then, like, they're pretty close together. Like, I like both of them a lot for different reasons. And not only that too, what was really refreshing about this one, and I say this in my review too, but like we don't get a lot of slasher genre stuff in video games. Like, we get a ton of it in movies, sure, when it comes to horror movies. But like, other than stuff like Friday the 13th, the game, or Dead by Daylight, or Outlast, like, you don't really see stuff in like the slasher genre in horror games. So it was just really refreshing to play like a slasher style movie based video game. Like, I thought that was like really, really like a really refreshing thing about this game, and thought it was really cool. But yeah, overall, I like the story. I think it's pretty good. And I don't really have like any other story beats to cover besides the one that we covered here.
I think that's or what, you got something before we go to final words?
I was just going to say that I can do it in my final words. Let's do that.
All right, let's take a break and then we'll hit our final words. The music plays. Boom, 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 boom. And we're back. Not Dead by Daylight. Devil in Me, the game of the week. A game about shooting a movie that doesn't go very well.
Man, Arthur's going ham over there.
He's got a lot of spit that he's got to get out.
He's just staring up.
What are you guys doing here?
Yeah. He's just like looking right at me, open mouth coughing.
What are you going to do about this, Dad?
All right. So I always take the first final words. This game is fantastic. Now the price point is a little high, but maybe you can get your friends to chip in. It would definitely be worth it, or get it on sale. But I really enjoyed this. I've enjoyed like all the dark anthologies we've played so far. And I am super hyped for the next one. Horror in space. I love me some aliens. I am very excited to play the next one. We definitely need to do it for the pod next November, October, whenever it comes out. But this is going to be a recommend for me. I recommend movie night mode specifically. The shared story, while fun, is definitely a handicapped version of the movie night, which I think is the intended play for this game. And that's all I got to say about this one. It's worth it. Go play it.
I would like to highlight, so the comedic value in this game is through the roof. There's so many Scooby-Doo traps, and I'm saying literal Scooby-Doo trap, multiple trap doors where you fall down, sometimes hitting your head. It's very slapsticky in some ways, but every single time, like specifically, I have one in my head where Mark is standing in the corner and then he just vanishes. He just goes straight down. It's so funny. The game's like Supermassive's problem with kind of like that uncanny valley is still here. And so you got to, it takes a little while to get used to how they look and how they move and stuff like that. But the game itself is very campy and fun. And if you're a fan of horror, you're going to love this. And like Ryan was saying, there's not a lot of slasher stuff. So it was very refreshing to have. It's not the Grudge Girl or whatever. Like it's like usually a very similar type of horror in a lot of video games.
Yeah. Every horror game is Fear Deep Down or Silent Hill.
Yeah. Or Resident Evil, or there's no zombies or anything like that. Like, I like how different the Dark Pictures games are, and again, this one felt really different from a lot of other stuff. And yeah, I'm with you as far as this being a recommend for me. Like, especially if you're into horror games at all, I think you really dig it. I also think this is a really good game to play by yourself because I still think there's a lot of enjoyment to be had there. Also, if you're looking for a game with good replay value, I think there's a lot of reasons to replay this one, especially because, like I mentioned, the good ending and the bad ending are very different from each other, and even the permutations in between are very different. Plus, you've got the curator's cut to go back to as well, which puts another spin on the gameplay. So I think there's a lot of replay value for what you get, and that's why I wouldn't evaluate it by $30 for 4 hours. True. I look at it more like, you're going to probably want to play through this at least twice. And not only that too, but if you play single player versus what y'all described, since you're playing through all the elements yourself, it takes longer to go through it. Like for me, the playthrough wasn't 4 hours. It took, 6 to 8 hours for my playthrough where everyone lived, watching all the cutscenes because I'm doing everything myself. Multiple moments were happening at the same time, and there was none of the teleportation stuff. So if you're doing everything yourself, there's a lot of game there if you're going to go the single player route. So, and especially too, it's one of those things where I also think horror games shouldn't be super long anyways, because then they they outlive their welcome. Kind of like Alien Isolation. You brought it up earlier. Like that's a perfect example of that, where that game didn't need to be 25 hours. Yes, it's good bang for your buck.
5 hours.
Yeah, it's so long, dude.
Yeah,
I never.
You don't
like 2 hours, and I'm like, I'll come back to this later.
Yeah, that game there was like a specific section of the game in Alien Isolation where the game should have just ended, but they didn't end it there. It just keeps going. And I was like, okay, maybe it's coming to the end soon. And it keeps going and going and going.
Oh my God.
Get horror games, you shouldn't do that with because it breaks the formula. So I actually liked the idea of this being shorter, kind of like a Resident Evil, because Resident Evil 2 is also like when it came out, it was a $60 game for a 5-hour experience that you then replay multiple times. So that's what I equate this to as well, as far as your monetary value.
Okay, I strike my monetary value complaint from my review. I have been changed.
Yeah, because I think that's the way to look at a game like this. Whereas, if you're only going to play it once, then it's definitely more of a rental or a library pickup or something like that.
I mean, I got it from the library, and I'm not regretting it.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing, if I would step into your final words, this is a AA title. There's some odd animations. Some of the models look a little off, and this is not the new Resident Evil.
That contributed to my idea that maybe the killer was an animatronic, because there was one scene in particular where there's a real close up on the back of his head, and I was like, is he a porcelain man? Like, is he himself a mannequin? I couldn't really, but I was like, is this just a silly looking model? And I was staring too hard at it, or what was that? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But Ryan knows everything. We still are very ignorant.
I don't know about that, but yeah, it's definitely, it's more simple than you think, actually, which is interesting. But yeah, so overall,
it was
I think
Charlie.
It's a great pickup.
He was the killer with the dog.
It was the dog the whole time, just like in Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, it's the dog.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, if more games need horror endings where the dog is the killer.
I have a picture with that dog on the thing, and it says it was your doing all along, or whatever
whatever he says when he walks in.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's such a good ending. Oh my god.
I love the song, the little bark, 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 bark. That plays.
Yeah. That's exactly how it sounds.
I'm so excited to actually see what they do in the Silent Hill remake, the Silent Hill 2 remake, to see the dog ending in that game. It's gonna be great. But,
right
there you go.
Arthur's going ham again.
Yeah, he's getting big anger.
He's very excited about the Dark Pictures anthology. Let me tell you what.
All right, so I think those are excellent final words. Oh, he is farting or pooping real hard, everyone. Dear listeners, Naomi is letting it rip. All right, so Ryan, thank you.
You want to talk about you want to plug your stuff again while I mute Philip's baby?
Absolutely. So you can of course find us over on Twitter at Carpool Gaming, as well as on YouTube, youtube.com/Carpool Gaming. All of our podcasts are also on all the podcast services as well. So Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the places like that. Of course, the shows are Xbox Drive, the PlayStation Drive, the Nintendo Drive, the RPG Cave, and We the Gamercast. You can find more of me though on the RPG Cave, our role-playing game podcast, as well as the Xbox Drive, our weekly Xbox podcast on podcast services or on YouTube. And as well, if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm over there at Ryan Turford as well.
Hell yeah, go give them 5 stars on all of those. Listener, listen to me. This is a personalized message for you, Cameron. You need to give them 5 stars on everything. And also, Philip, we forgot to do the Patreon thing. We do a Patreon, well, it's not exclusive, but we do another show called Listening Together where we listen to OSTs for video games. Do you have like an OST that you really enjoy that you think maybe we should check out on that?
Well, if you want like multiple soundtracks, or I'll give you just one from the game. It's Final Fantasy XIV. One of the best soundtracks of all time, especially I would say specifically the Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringer soundtrack is incredible. It's composed by Matsuhiro Soken, and it's one of the best modern video game soundtracks in my opinion out there. It's so good. But you know, I love classic soundtracks too. So Super Metroid, any of the Mega Man soundtracks, stuff like that, I love too. So
nice.
Oh yeah.
For our last one, we did Dicey Dungeons.
Oh, nice.
Which that should be coming out on the 15th, or it's already available now on our Patreon, dear non-paying listeners. So if you want to support us, go there. Or if you really want to support us, go check out Ryan on his RPG Cave. I've listened to, I think, 3 episodes at this point, and you're definitely going to make it into the rotation.
Very nice. Thank you so much once again for the invite today, you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. So let's have some more fun. Nave, what are we playing next week?
Streets of Rage, baby. Should we play the other ones? We already knocked out the first one, but I mean, if the other 2 games are just as short as this, then maybe we should.
Well, other 3 games, I'm going to stand by and correct you, because Streets of Rage 4 is also amazing too. But
we've done a full 2-hour discussion on 4.
Oh, okay. So yeah, actually, at least make sure you play Streets of Rage 2, because it's really, really, really good. It's way better than the first one, I think. So,
can you stomach one more, Philip? Because I am notorious for team killing in those games. It's the favorite thing to do. If I ever get a dagger, I'm going to throw it in the back of Philip wherever he's at.
Yeah, I mean, for God's sakes, in Streets of Rage 3, you can play as a kangaroo if you want to. Just throwing it out there. That's a thing.
We also, in the first game, we played the Japanese version, and so at the end you have to there's like a part where it's like, join me or don't with the bad guy, and we didn't know what he said, so we both picked different things, and then we got the ending where we had to kill each other.
Yeah.
Which
is one wanted to join Mr. X and one didn't.
Yeah. We didn't, and then Philip was like, I gotta figure out what we said.
I gotta look this up now. All right. So how about you join us next week, co-op partners, and maybe we can all crash a boat into a rock together.
Oh, save the dog. Don't kill dogs in games.
Or you can say bye too.
Goodbye, everybody.